Memories swirled in his mind, and before he knew it, Ethan Vance had finished a plate of salmon. The moment he set down his chopsticks, a waiter brought over a plate of bluefin tuna. Ethan glanced at Victor. It didn't take a genius to know his father had quietly signaled the bodyguards outside to order more. "I told you not to waste money. It was just a whim. I only wanted a taste." Victor chuckled. "If my son wants to eat, what does waste even mean? Try a piece." Ethan picked up a slice and savored it, nodding slightly. "Not bad. Very tender. You should have some. You've just been drinking. I haven't seen you eat a thing." Victor's smile widened as he picked up his own chopsticks and tried a piece. It had been a long, long time since father and son had shared a meal this peacefully. "When Ron Wallace finds the right guy, you'll need to cooperate. Show your face," Ethan said as he ate. Victor grunted in understanding. He knew what his son was planning. Find someone to impersonate Gene Gunner Marshall to convince the people in the shadows that Marshall was still alive. Marshall might have the guts to die before talking, but as long as he was alive and in Victor's hands, the mastermind behind him would never sleep soundly. They'd have to come for him. The problem was, while father and son knew a pair of eyes was watching them, they had no idea where those eyes were. What if they put on this whole show and the audience wasn't there to see it? It would all be for nothing. The how, the when, the degree to which they pushed it, all of it had to be carefully considered. Victor voiced his concerns, but Ethan remained calm. "Don't worry. I'll make sure they know. Once Ron picks someone tomorrow, I'll take Isabel to the manor. Let her stay there for a few days." Victor understood immediately. His son was short on manpower. "Good. Security at Phoenix Crest is tight. She'll be safe. If you need people, I can send you some." Ethan considered it, then nodded. "All right. 5 or 6 should do." With the plan set, they ate a few more bites before going their separate ways. In the parking garage, just before getting into his car, Ethan casually glanced around. A silver Volkswagen Passat was parked not far away, looking distinctly out of place among the surrounding luxury vehicles. Ethan's eyes swept past it, a faint smile playing on his lips. Finn spoke in a low voice. "She got here about 10 minutes after you went up. She's been following us everywhere these past few days, different car each time." Ethan got into the Hummer and shut the door, murmuring, "Let her follow. Just hope she doesn't drop the ball." Jax, in the driver's seat, looked back. "What do you mean?" At the same time, in the Shaw residence, Caleb Shaw was locked in a storage room in the basement of his family's mansion. A few days of confinement had beaten all the fight out of the arrogant young master. He sat slumped against a wall like a corpse, his eyes vacant, staring blankly at the small, head-sized ventilation grate. The room contained only a bed, a toilet, and a desk. On the desk lay a copy of Meditations. The page corners were curled and worn. It had been there for years. Caleb had first been locked in this room for punishment when he was 14. That was the year his father had bought him the book. He could now recite it from memory. Suddenly, the door at the top of the stairs creaked open, followed by the sound of his mother sobbing. "Honey, please forgive him this time. He's really changed. He'll never make you angry again. Honey, please let him go." "Changed? That animal knows how to change. Get out of my way." Hearing his father's venomous, hateful voice, Caleb felt a chill seize him, his eyes flooding with terror. He scrambled up from the corner, but his legs were weak and he couldn't even stand. He crawled to the desk, his trembling hands gripping the surface until he could finally pull himself upright. He grabbed a pen and began to copy passages from a book. In moments, the young man was drenched in sweat. The sound of his father returning home was 1,000 times more terrifying than any ghost story. Outside, heavy footsteps descended the stairs. Caleb's mother was still trying to block the way. "Honey, let him go. He really knows he was wrong. Don't hit him. You, give me that whip. It has iron studs on it. Are you trying to kill him? Knows he was wrong? Does he?" I turn a blind eye to his usual troublemaking. But now he tries to kill Victor Vance's son? Huh. You really think Victor is meek in front of me because he's afraid of me? He's afraid of my power. He's afraid of this position I hold. But I'm not the only one who can wear this crown. Do you understand me? The federal task force is still in Port Sterling. Hearing the argument, Caleb's older brother rushed over. Although he couldn't stand his perpetually immature younger brother, he was still family. Besides, their father's punishments were too severe. Caleb always ended up covered in bruises and cuts. "Dad, I already taught him a lesson," the brother pleaded. "Let him off this time. Besides, we haven't completely burned our bridges with the Vances. The matter is over." Caleb's face was ashen. He listened to the conversation with trembling fear, praying to every god he could think of that his father would listen, just this once. His father roared. "It's a good thing he didn't succeed." "Humph. Who is Victor Vance?" "Huh. His in-law. Arthur Thorne. Used to have a protector who was the top dog in Port Sterling, a level above me. And what happened? They both ended up in prison. And look at Victor. The task force brings him in for a little chat, and he walks out completely unscathed. Does that sound like a pushover to you? If that animal had killed Victor's son a few days ago, can you even imagine what that old bastard would do to me? You can't even begin to imagine. Even a cornered rabbit will bite. And Victor Vance is a wolf. Even his own father, Theodore, has to be wary of him now. I'm going to beat this insolent whelp to death today. Both of you, get out of my way. Go upstairs. His mother stood her ground, blocking the door, tears streaming down her face. You call him an animal, but did you ever think about when you last paid any attention to him? All you ever think about is climbing higher. Is power that important to you? You can only sneak home once a month. Our 2 sons can't even use your last name, and I can't openly be your wife. I've had enough of this life. I did it for this family. If everyone in this city knew our son was my son, how could he do business? Huh? Could you still live in this $80 million mansion? If everyone knew that animal was my son, how could I keep my position? Then don't keep it, his mother screamed. Ever since the task force came to Port Sterling before the new year, I haven't had a single good night's sleep. Let's stop, honey. Let's go abroad, the 4 of us, and live a good life. Can't we? In that other storeroom, there's over $70 million in cash, plus the antiques and gold bars. Find someone to launder it for us, send it overseas. Or we could just leave it. Our son's company in America has plenty of money. We can live well as a family for generations. The moment she finished, the crack of the whip sounded. Get out of my sight. It took me 30 years to get to where I am today. 30 years. I will absolutely not allow anyone to threaten my position. Son, take your mother upstairs. Her older son didn't dare defy his enraged father. He forcibly dragged his mother up the stairs. Inside the storeroom, Caleb stood frozen. The door slowly opened, revealing a hand gripping the whip. Caleb closed his eyes in despair. The intense fear made it hard to breathe. His body trembled uncontrollably as he began to recite from a book. When the world knows beauty as beauty, ugliness arises. When it knows good as good, evil arises. The next morning, Ethan rose at his usual early hour. It was the weekend, so he wasn't worried about work. He ambled downstairs, made a cup of tea, and habitually called out, "Benny, get up and take a leak." Finn, sitting before the bronze panther statue with a Bible in his hands, glanced over but said nothing. Ethan, his mind on other things, noticed the kitchen light was off and Lily wasn't there. Only then did he remember he'd sent both of them to protect Isabel. Bored, he sat on the couch, sipping his hot tea. He propped his legs up and watched Finn diligently reading, a mix of emotions stirring inside him. The Finn he first knew didn't believe in any of this. He remembered their first meeting during a raid on a drug trafficker in Mexico. At the time, Ethan's arms-dealing business had just been smashed, and he'd suffered heavy losses. He desperately needed a successful operation to stabilize morale and had targeted a mid-level dealer, whose boss was a Korean national. In that part of the world, any dealer with real power had their own armed forces beyond his reach. He could only go after the middle-of-the-road guys, especially foreigners. But he hadn't expected that a foreign intelligence agency had also targeted the same dealer, sending a 5-man team, including Finn, on a secret capture mission. As fate would have it, both sides made their move at the same time. Ethan was baffled. Why did this small-time drug ring have a few highly skilled assassins? His intel hadn't shown any trace of them. Finn was equally surprised. The intelligence from his superiors had described a minor organization. Why were there so many men, and why were they so well-armed? The most bewildered of all was the dealer himself, who had been singing with a beautiful woman on his arm when 2 separate groups of armed men burst in and started a firefight on his turf. In the chaos of the 3-way battle, Ethan and Finn slowly figured out what was happening. They adapted, forming an unspoken alliance to wipe out the dealer's crew. Afterward, Ethan's team took the cash, while Finn's men took the dealer to complete their mission. The 2 groups never exchanged a single word. Back at his base, Ethan lamented that if he had such well-trained tigers in his own ranks, his ambitions would be unstoppable. He never imagined that the very next day, while fishing by the sea to unwind, he would rescue a near-death Finn from the water. He later learned the full story. The dealer they had captured had deep financial ties to a high-ranking official in his home country, having provided more than half the funds for his election campaign. When that official learned that Finn's team was in Mexico, he realized a rival political party was trying to dig up dirt on him. Without hesitation, he framed Finn and his team as traitors and sent another termination squad to eliminate them. Finn's team, thinking their colleagues were there for extraction, were caught completely off guard and massacred. If Finn hadn't reacted instantly and jumped into the sea, he would have been killed on the spot like his four comrades. He had survived, but the charge of treason was already official back home. Returning would only endanger his mother, his only family. Utterly desperate, Finn had agreed to join the very outlaw he had once looked down upon with disdain, Ethan Vance. The trauma of being gunned down by his own colleagues left deep psychological scars. The constant firefights he endured with Ethan only worsened his condition. That's when he gradually began to find solace in religion, seeking some form of psychological comfort. Eventually, Finn's former superior at the intelligence agency cleared his name. Though Ethan was reluctant to let him go, he sent him home. His brother's mental state was deteriorating, and after being shot during an operation, a bullet remained lodged in his brain, impossible to remove. It was a ticking time bomb. It was better for him to go home and spend time with his mother. So Finn went back, and even married the woman his mother chose for him before she passed away. But life is unpredictable. It's all fate. Thinking of the past, Ethan couldn't help but sigh. Finn, I talked to Milo the other day. He said there's a great neurosurgery center in Shanghai. How about I take you for a look? Maybe they have a way to get that bullet out. The hand, turning the page of the Bible, paused. Finn turned to look at Ethan, his voice calm. Forget it. I've been to the top hospitals in the U.S. I'm not holding out hope. Ethan clicked his tongue. That was years ago. Medicine has advanced since then. Just listen to me. If it can be treated, we should try. I still need to set you up, you know. That Dr. Russell, she's nice. Finn blinked. Someone like me doesn't deserve love. Let's focus on the task at hand. How long I have left is up to fate. Don't waste your energy. Ethan pouted, but didn't press the issue. How could he not care about his brother? That afternoon, while Ethan was reading in his study, Ron Wallace called. He'd found 3 candidates and sent their photos via WhatsApp for Ethan to choose from. Ethan picked the one whose facial structure most closely resembled Gene Marshall's. Get him a makeup now, he instructed. Make him look as wretched as possible, like he's been locked up for days and just escaped. It has to be realistic. No one can see it's a fake. After hanging up, Ethan put the book back on the shelf, put on his jacket, and went downstairs. Finn, you're with me. Jax, you hold down the fort. Keep an eye on all the cameras you installed in the area. Call me immediately if you see anyone suspicious. Leaving Emerald Lake Estates, Ethan headed straight for Isabel's place. It didn't take long before he spotted a red Toyota Camry following them. Finn glanced at the rearview mirror. Probably her. She changed cars again. She's probably borrowed cars from every colleague she has by now. Huh? Heh. Let her follow. She's going to be a big help today. As he spoke, Ethan took out his phone and called Leo Bishop. The ringtone had barely started when Leo answered. Yo, Mr. Vance. You finally remembered your boy. Got something for me to do. Just say the word. Me and my guys are getting stir-crazy over here. After some light banter, Ethan got straight to the point. Actually, I do have a small favor to ask. I need you to do it alone. Keep it quiet. You got it. Just tell me what to do, and I'll get it done right. Leo replied without hesitation. Ethan's voice turned serious. I'm about to send you a location. Go to the film studio and pick someone up. I'll call the crew to let them know you're coming. Once you have him, contact Jax and do what he says. Get the guy to Emerald Lake Estates. And remember, this cannot get out. I got it. Don't you worry, Mr. Vance. Hanging up, Ethan took a deep breath. Picking up the actor had to be done by a fresh face like Leo. Anyone from his or Victor's inner circle would be too conspicuous. If the people watching them got wind of it, the whole act would be pointless. It would be an admission that Gene Marshall was already dead, which would be a total loss. Everything was in place. He just had to hope this tailwind, who had been following him for days, would blow in the right direction. Only then would this play be truly spectacular. About half an hour later, Ethan arrived at Isabel's building. Just before entering the underground garage, he had Finn pull over. He went into a pharmacy and bought a pack of medicated patches for mouth sores. Back in the car, he looked in a rearview mirror and stuck one on the corner of his lip where Sienna Sterling had bitten him. For added authenticity, he put 2 more on the inside of his lip. Only then did he take the elevator upstairs. When Lily opened the door to Isabel's apartment, she was startled by his appearance. Mr. Ethan, your mouth. What happened? Ethan didn't enter right away. It's nothing, he said, then lowered his voice. Pack your things. Go stay with Benny at my place for now. There might be an operation tonight. Wait for my call. Lily never questioned her young master's arrangements. She just did as she was told, nodding before going to the guest room to pack her things as Ethan walked in. Isabel was on the living room sofa. When she first heard Ethan's voice, an unexpected flutter of joy rose in her heart, but it vanished just as quickly. The couple, who hadn't seen each other in days, exchanged a look. The Ice Queen glanced at the patch on Ethan's mouth, then looked away without a word, returning to the game of chess on her tablet. Ethan sauntered over and held out his hand with a roguish grin. Still jealous? Come on, you know the rules. Let's shake on it. Isabel shot him a glare and didn't take his hand. What makes you think I'd be jealous? She said coolly. Ethan sat beside her and forcibly took her hand. Playing chess, I see. Looks like you've been cultivating some inner peace lately. That's good. Isabel's eyes held a hint of resentment. She pulled her hand back. Thanks to someone, all the executives at the company are ignoring me. Besides playing games, I really don't know what else to do. Listen to you. You make it sound like I've sidelined you to stage a coup. Ethan laughed. I was just worried about you. Wanted you to rest and heal. Here, let me see. How's the foot? Isabel didn't move. Much better, she said flatly. I'll be back at work in a few days. Let me see, so I know for sure. No need. Seeing his wife's coldness, Ethan felt a wave of frustration. He cursed Sienna Sterling in his head and leaned back on the sofa with a sigh. He sent a text to Leo Bishop. Call me when you have him. Isabel finished her game. Noticing the scoundrel beside her had been quiet for a while, she turned and asked, What are you doing here? Ethan immediately sat up straight. I missed you, of course, he said earnestly. You misunderstood me before, and I got so worked up about it that I broke out in sores. Look, my whole mouth is full of them. It hurts like hell. Isabel gave him a withering look. More likely your good friend bit you, and you're too ashamed to show your face. Ethan was speechless. Was a woman's intuition really this absurdly accurate? Don't you go accusing an innocent man. I really have mouth sores. Isabel, affecting an air of complete indifference, asked again, What are you doing here? Ethan pouted. I'm here to pick you up. Isabel looked at him, puzzled. Ethan explained, Your foot is still not right, and you had a scare last time. I was thinking I'd take you to the manor for a while. The air is good, it's quiet. A perfect place for you to recuperate. Isabel stared into his eyes. Are you planning to get revenge on the person who sent those men to ram our car? She asked suddenly. Ethan froze for a second. Huh? No. Don't lie to me, Isabel said. That big guy, Benny, comes to see Lily every day. I know he's staying at your place, which means you sent him to protect me, right? And now you want me to go to the manor. You must be preparing for revenge, and you're afraid I'll get caught in the middle. Isn't that it? Ethan hadn't expected Isabel to figure all this out. After a moment's hesitation, he put on a pained expression. It's not that I want revenge. It's that he's still looking for trouble. Anyway, this is a bit complicated to resolve. Just listen to me. Stay at the manor until it's over. That way, I can focus on dealing with him. What does he want? Ethan shrugged. We'll find out after it's resolved. Isabel was silent for a moment, then took a breath. Can you resolve it peacefully? Without violence. Why would there be violence? Victor Vance himself is stepping in. It'll be settled over a negotiation table. Don't worry, nothing will happen. I'm sending you to the manor just to be absolutely sure. Isabel had never liked that magnificent estate. The few times she had been there, she had always felt uncomfortable. But right now, she didn't want to be a burden to Ethan. Since this was unavoidable, she would let him handle it with a clear mind. Living in constant fear was no solution. Are we leaving now? No rush. Let me look at you a little longer. I haven't seen you in so many days. I really missed you, Ethan said, his gaze intense, his tone full of charm. Isabel felt a wave of awkwardness and quickly changed the subject. Your injury, is it any better? Ethan sighed, his expression turning grave. Isabel looked at him suspiciously. I won't hide it from you, Ethan said with great solemnity. The doctor said there will be long-term effects, and they'll get worse as I get older. How could that be? Isabel was genuinely alarmed. She remembered the wound on his back, right next to his spine. Had it damaged a spinal nerve? Is there no way to prevent these effects? Did the doctor suggest any remedies? Have you seen other specialists? Seeing Isabel's anxious expression, Ethan was secretly delighted, but he maintained a sorrowful look. There is one remedy, but... Seeing him hesitate, Isabel pressed. What is it? Ethan said, dead serious. The doctor said, for a full recovery, I have to kiss the woman I love every day, and for a long time. Otherwise, get out. Huh? Ethan grinned wickedly. Izzy, you were so worried just now. If you've fallen in love with me, just say it. I won't say no. Isabel was fuming. Ethan Vance, you are so childish. Childish? I can be shameless too. Ethan pouted, then paused, his eyes flicking toward the guest room. He suddenly called out, Lily, are you packed? Isabel instinctively glanced toward the guest room, but saw no one. Puzzled, she turned back, only to see that roguish, handsome face right in front of her. In the same instant, his lips landed perfectly on hers. Hearing her name called, Lily walked out of the guest room, confused. She saw the scene unfold, and her face instantly turned beet red. She spun around in a panic, bumped into a wall like a confused Roomba, corrected her course, and scurried back into her room. On the sofa, the two were pressed together. Isabel's mind went blank. When she finally processed what was happening, her body stiffened. Her eyes flew open, and she shoved the damn man away. Izzy, you ambushed me with a kiss. Ethan accused, playing the victim. Nope, not fair. I have to return the favor. You bastard. Isabel was about to explode. She raised her hand to strike him. Ethan, quick as a flash, pushed himself back, moving just out of her reach. You want to hit me? He taunted with a wicked grin. Come on, come and get me. Isabel glanced down at her injured right foot, fuming with helpless anger. She grabbed the tablet beside her and hurled it at him before turning her head away to sulk. Ethan caught the tablet. Ooh, we're a little gas canister again, are we? Just then his phone rang. It was Leo Bishop, telling him he'd picked up the actor. Hanging up, Ethan wiped the playful smile off his face and stood up, walking toward Isabel. All right, no more games. I'm taking you to the manor. Isabel kept her head turned, refusing to look at him. She was about to call for Lily when Ethan simply scooped her into his arms. Put me down. Don't touch me. Isabel scowled, pushing against his chest. You said it, not me. Okay, I'm letting go, Ethan said, pretending to loosen his grip. Isabel instinctively threw her arms around his neck. Their eyes met, and the moment hung awkwardly between them. That's more like it. Hold on tight. If you make this young master unhappy, I'll drop you right on the floor. Put me down. I will not. Are you rebelling against me now? Can you please stop being so obnoxious? This king cannot. Isabel, both furious and helpless, had no choice but to let the shameless bastard carry her out of the apartment. While they waited for the elevator, Ethan looked down at the beauty in his arms, a devilish smile on his lips. Izzy, one more kiss? You taste a little sweet. This king can't get enough. Isabel looked up and saw the dog of a man lick his lips. Mortified and enraged, she glared at his neck. If you dare try anything else, I'll bite you to death. Ethan grinned. Don't be in such a hurry. After we cure you of your cold feet, you can bite me all you want on our wedding night. Ethan Vance, have you no shame? Isabel roared. Unable to contain her anger, she sank her teeth into his neck. In the garage, Ethan placed Isabel in the back of the Hummer and walked around to the other side to get in. Finn, with his sharp eyes, glanced from the bite mark on Ethan's neck to Isabel, his expression a little strange. Ethan just grinned shamelessly. What are you looking at? He said to Finn. You're a single dog. You wouldn't get it. Finn was silent. Isabel's lips were pressed into a thin line. She glanced at the teeth marks on Ethan's neck, so embarrassed she couldn't lift her head. After dropping Isabel off at Phoenix Crest Manor and personally settling her in, Ethan teased her a little more until he got a call from Jax saying the actor had arrived. He then took the 6 bodyguards Victor had assigned him and hurried back to Emerald Lake Estates. Along the way, the red Camry followed, not too close, not too far. As they neared Emerald Lake, the Hummer suddenly accelerated. The 2 Audis carrying the bodyguards sped up in unison. The Camry also picked up speed, tailing them closely. A moment later, the Hummer screeched to a halt in the middle of the road. The 2 Audis stopped haphazardly behind it. The bodyguards jumped out in a panic and chased after a figure sprinting away in the distance. The running man was the actor Ron Wallace had found. His makeup made him look utterly disheveled, as if he were desperately fleeing for his life. He shouted for help as he ran, his portrayal of a man in a life-or-death struggle so convincing he was far more professional than many so-called stars. The beautiful woman driving the Camry saw the actor's face and stomped on the gas, seemingly trying to intercept and rescue Jean Marshall. But the Hummer swerved, blocking her path. Police! Nobody move! Eva Vance, who had been tailing her brother for days, got out of her car and glared at Ethan in the back of the Hummer. At the same time, the bodyguards had already caught Marshall. Ignoring Eva's warning, they shoved him into an Audi and sped off. Stop! Eva yelled. She turned to get back in her car to give chase, but Ethan opened his door and stepped out, blocking her way. Well, if it isn't my dear sister, he said, feigning surprise. What a coincidence. Get out of my way. Don't interfere with official business. Ethan didn't budge. Official business? What business? Is this a police car? You're not even in uniform. Eva glanced back. The 2 Audis were gone. She was furious. Ethan Vance. The Havenwood Creek shooting. It was you. Just you wait. You're going to prison. I don't know what you're talking about. Eva pulled a pair of handcuffs from her belt. Come back to the station with me. I'll make you understand. Ethan didn't surrender. He brushed her hand away. Do you even know protocol? He drawled. No police car. no uniform, and you want to arrest me for no reason. What if you're a criminal pretending to be a cop? A celebrity was kidnapped just like that once, you know. Eva bit her lip, pulled her badge from her pocket, and shoved it in his face. Open your damn eyes and take a good look. Ethan nodded. Sister, that's not a very good photo of you. Cut the crap. Come with me. Ethan shook his head. Officer, I just parked illegally. At most, that's a traffic violation, not a crime, right? Slapping cuffs on me for that is a bit much. Don't play dumb with me. Eva snapped. I saw it clearly just now. That man was Gene Marshall, the missing person from the Havenwood Creek shooting. Ethan played dumb. What Marshall? What shooting? Oh, you mean those guys chasing each other just now? I don't know them. Don't try to pin this crap on me. Ethan Vance. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm warning you, don't be so arrogant. Is being arrogant a crime? Heh. Officer Vance, if you want to arrest me, at least get a warrant. Don't always be so unprofessional. If you piss me off, I might just forget we're related and file a complaint. Eva was seething, her breathing heavy. She forced herself to calm down and, after a moment's thought, said, Fine. So, I was unprofessional. Then how about I come over to your place for a cup of tea, as your sister? No. Ethan refused flatly. It's not convenient at my place today. The more he refused, the more certain Eva became that something was wrong. In truth, from the gang shootout at Nero's bar to the drug trafficker Donnie Sullivan, she had already connected two major criminal cases to Ethan. He had asked her to look up a man with a specific tattoo, and that man was Sullivan. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. To investigate further, she had taken a long leave from the precinct and started her own surveillance operation. To be cautious, she changed cars almost every day, either borrowing from colleagues or renting. But she had underestimated her brother's counter-surveillance skills. Until this moment, she believed her tale was flawless, which was why she'd had this unexpected stroke of luck. In her mind, Ethan had been holding Gene Marshall at his villa all along. Today, while he was out picking up Isabel, Marshall had found a chance to escape. She had no idea that Ethan had spotted her on day one, nor did she know that everything she had seen and thought today was exactly what Ethan wanted. To put it bluntly, Ethan wanted to use the police to spread the word that Gene Marshall was alive and in his hands. It was a most convincing way to stage the drama without looking too deliberate. After being refused, Eva suddenly sneered. You think I can't really get a search warrant for your house? She knew Marshall had likely been moved elsewhere, but after being held in Ethan's villa for so many days, he must have left some trace, hair, fingerprints. Even if Ethan was having someone clean up right now, it would be impossible to erase everything so quickly. If she could find anything and match it to the hair found in Marshall's bathroom or the fingerprint from his prison records, she could officially name Ethan as a suspect. Ethan scoffed. Then go apply for a warrant. What's the point of threatening me here? Eva immediately took out her phone and called a colleague, speaking loudly in front of Ethan. I found Gene Marshall, the missing person from the Havenwood Creek case at Emerald Lake Estates. Get a search warrant. My dashcam recorded his face. Hearing this, Ethan feigned panic, rushing back to his car and heading home, deliberately luring Eva to search his house. Eva got in her car and followed the Hummer to the entrance of the villa community. She flashed her badge and was let through easily. But without a warrant, she could do nothing as Ethan shut his front gate. She had no choice but to wait outside, calling her colleagues and specifically asking them to have the traffic department check surrounding surveillance cameras to track the two autists. But with a certain blonde-haired hacker on the job, what use were surveillance cameras on key routes? They remained in a standoff, one inside, one out. Half an hour later, several police cars arrived, sirens blaring. They showed Ethan the search warrant. He had no reason to obstruct them any longer and opened the gates. However, after searching the entire villa for a long time, they found no signs of illegal imprisonment. The forensics team collected some hair and fingerprints, but they would need to be compared back at the lab to yield any results. Without concrete evidence, and with Ethan flatly denying any connection to the person in Eva's dashcam footage, Captain Morrison could do nothing. He told Ethan to keep his phone on for a potential summons, but he couldn't take him in. As Captain Morrison led his team away, Eva didn't leave with them. She pulled Ethan into a quiet corner and demanded, Tell me, did you already kill Donnie Sullivan? Ethan drawled lazily, Who's Donnie Sullivan? Eva glared at him. Ethan Vance, if you found any clues about what happened 10 years ago, you can tell me. I will help you. But please, stop taking matters into your own hands. I know you. You're not a bad person at heart. You're just blinded by hatred. If you keep going down this dark path, it won't end well for you. Ethan smiled, his playful expression gone. What's good and what's bad? What's black and what's white? Are people who burn incense and pray to statues necessarily good? Are people who wear clothes necessarily human? I'm just getting my own justice. I have no interest in being some do-gooder. The law will give you justice. If everyone acted like you, what would the world become? Ethan threw up his hands. It's been 10 years. Where's the justice you were supposed to give me? Huh? Hand it over. What? You don't have it. So you can't give it to me? That case file is probably growing mold in your archives by now. Oof. I'm already on this road. I can't turn back, and I don't want to. I won't spare a single one of those people who deserve to go to hell. If you want to save them with your law, then try. Let's see which of us is faster. Eva closed her eyes and took a deep breath. You'd better pray that none of the fingerprints or hair collected today match Gene Marshall's. Otherwise, I will arrest you. Ethan was unfazed. Sure, he smiled. I'll go pay my respects to the Panther statue in a bit. He's a righteous figure. He'll look out for me. Eva gritted her teeth. After a pause, she asked in a low voice, the shooting at Hualin Mountain a few days ago. Was it you two? Ethan was exasperated. Seriously, sis? If a dog dies on the street in a few days, are you going to come investigate me for that, too? If you're really that bored, go on a date. You're 30 years old. Aren't you afraid you'll never get married? Eva stared at him for a moment, then tossed a "we'll see about that" over her shoulder and walked away. Ethan watched her familiar back, his expression complicated. He never blamed his sister. She was an upright police officer, and she wasn't wrong. But for the blood debt owed to him, he wouldn't back down, not even if the heavens themselves stood in his way. Back in the villa, Leo Bishop approached him with an obsequious smile. Mr. Vance, what big operation are we getting into this time? The detective squad was almost fully mobilized. That was damn exciting. Ethan sat on the sofa and motioned for Leo to sit beside him. You're not scared? He asked with a faint smile. If it were the old days, I'd be terrified. A small-time punk like me. Cops are the last people I want to see. Leo grinned. But working for you, I've got confidence. I'm not scared. Ethan was silent for a moment, then patted his shoulder. Leo, thank you for your help. But don't ask about my business. The less you know, the better for you. Leo nodded slowly, disappointment in his eyes. Okay, Mr. Vance, I always thought you considered me one of your own. You are a trustworthy person, Ethan said seriously. But what I do is dangerous. It will get you hurt. Take my advice. I've given you plenty of money. Take your guys and do something legitimate. Stop with the petty crimes. A man should live like a man. Leo gritted his teeth and said stubbornly, Mr. Vance, I really won't work for you. I can be your driver, your security, your errand boy. I'll do anything, just as long as you let me stay by your side. A life with you. Leo Bishop wouldn't have lived in vain. Ethan still refused gently. Why don't you and your guys start a company? If you're short on cash, just ask me. Leo hesitated, then hung his head. And no need. The money you gave me is more than enough. Ethan smiled. All right, go upstairs and rest. You still have to take that actor home later. 2 hours later, Captain Morrison called to apologize to Ethan. However, Ethan, in a complete reversal, furiously filed a complaint against his own sister. He couldn't have the beautiful detective trailing him and getting in his way today. She could just stay at the precinct and reflect on her actions. Sure enough, Eva was reprimanded and left to write a self-criticism report in her office. Meanwhile, a photo of Gene Marshall had been posted online, offering a reward for any information. Seeing the online reward notice, Ethan calmly called the bodyguards, telling them to bring Gene Marshall back to the villa. At the same time, he called Lily and Benny back as well. Ron Wallace had told the actor he had a small role for him, $500 a day. So, he still thought this was all an act. The moment he walked into the villa, he asked Jax, who had picked him up that afternoon, how was my performance in that scene we rehearsed this afternoon? When do we start filming for real? Hey, I gotta say, the bodyguard actors you guys found are pretty professional. They're really good at playing it cool. Didn't say a word to me all afternoon. I was bored to death. Jax was sitting at the dining table, his eyes glued to a laptop screen displaying feed from the cameras he'd installed around the villa. The images switched constantly as he meticulously monitored the outside. Annoyed by the actor's rambling, the top-tier hacker pointed at Ethan. He's the boss. Go talk to him. The actor followed his finger and saw Ethan beckoning to him. He strode over. Boss, how'd I do? If you really think I'm good, you could give me a few more lines. Don't mind my age. I've practiced martial arts. If you don't believe me, I'll do a split for you right now. All right, that's enough. Ethan chuckled. At your age, let's not push it. Go get something to eat and rest up. I'll have someone take you home later. Oh, right, I'll pay you now. Ethan pulled out $500 and handed it over. The actor's face fell. It seemed he hadn't made the cut. Boss, please give me a chance. Let me try again. I promise I'll satisfy you. Look, I'll show you a few expressions. Happy, angry, sad, joyful. And look, I'll do a split for you. Ow shit. Pull my groin. It hurts, it hurts. Everyone stared. Ethan was speechless, but a man trying to make an honest living didn't deserve to be laughed at. He gave Leo Bishop a look. Help him up. Take him upstairs to rest. After they went upstairs, Ethan glanced at the darkening sky outside. Finn, Benny, Lily, gear up. We leave in half an hour. The three of them went into the storeroom, opened a hidden door, and emerged 10 minutes later carrying 5 equipment bags. The seemingly delicate and petite Lily was carrying a massive sniper rifle, a completely jarring sight. The 6 bodyguards sitting in the living room were dumbfounded, their own small handguns suddenly feeling like toys. Just then, Jax suddenly exclaimed, UAV. Ethan shot up from the sofa. As he strode toward Jax, he yelled upstairs, Leo, you two, stay away from the windows. Leo, thinking he was being clever, assumed it was the police outside. Got it. I'll close the curtains, he called back. Stay put. Don't do anything. Ethan frowned, looking at the computer screen. Jax had zoomed in as much as possible, but all they could see was a tiny red dot blinking in the sky, almost impossible to notice. It's high up, Jax said. They're here to watch us. The 6 bodyguards, not understanding what was happening, exchanged wary glances and drew their guns. Didn't expect them to come so soon. Good. Let them see Marshall with their own eyes, Ethan muttered, thinking. Jax switched between other camera feeds, but couldn't find the drone operator. Boss, want me to send up our drone to scout? Don't tip our hand, Ethan decided instantly. Act like we haven't seen it. It's still early. They won't dare to move in rashly. We'll wait, too. We'll head out in an hour. An hour passed quickly. During that time, the drone appeared and disappeared intermittently, as if afraid of being detected. It would watch for a few minutes, fly away, and then return to its position above the villa. Now, the drone was back on the screen. Ethan took a deep breath. Let's move. His team grabbed their gear and went to the garage through a small inner door. Ethan, with the 6 bodyguards, escorted the bound and gagged actor out of the villa, deliberately letting the drone get a clear shot of Marshall. He pretended to look around nervously before they all hurried into the garage. After this impromptu performance, the actor finally realized something was wrong. He looked at Ethan with fear in his eyes. Ethan couldn't be bothered to explain. He pulled out a few $100 bills and handed them over. You're staying here tonight, he said with a smile. We'll let you know tomorrow if we need you. Without giving the actor a chance to ask questions, he pulled Leo aside and whispered, watch him. If he asks anything, just make something up. And remember, stay away from the windows. At dawn, send him home. Got it, Mr. Vance. Ethan nodded, left 2 bodyguards behind, and departed with the others, heading for an abandoned factory they had scouted earlier. Once they arrived, they drove the cars directly into the factory building to stay out of the drone's sight. Then, he sent the other 4 bodyguards to stand watch at the entrance. The whole elaborate setup was to make the enemy believe he'd been cornered by the police and had no choice but to hide Marshall in this godforsaken place. The factory was in a remote area. It was past 10, and the surroundings were pitch black and dead silent. Benny set up a few battery-powered lamps, barely illuminating the vast space. Soon after, Victor Vance arrived with his own bodyguards. This was also part of Ethan's plan. His father's presence would maximize the credibility of the charade. Father and son talked for about half an hour. Seeing that the time was right, Ethan sent his father away. You should go. Be careful on the way back. Oh, and have your men drive my 2 Hummers back to Emerald Lake. Make it look like I went home to... Right. Victor grunted, frowning. They probably won't come tonight, will they? I don't think they'll move this fast. They'll want to observe us for at least a couple of days. Ethan rubbed his chin. I've given them such a huge opening. I think they'll seize the opportunity. Now that they've confirmed Marshall is alive, the longer they wait, the more panicked they'll become. Victor's expression was grave. He was still worried about his son. Let me leave you more men. It's too dangerous. Ethan waved him off. The more men you leave, the more they'll bring. Don't be a hindrance. Let them think we only have a few bodyguards here. It'll be easier for me to handle. Victor hesitated, then pursed his lips. His gaze swept over the faces of Ethan's team. He suddenly noticed Lily wasn't there. Where's Lily? That girl is formidable. Why didn't you bring her? Ethan just smiled without answering. Victor pouted, warned him again to be careful, and then left with his men. It was a dark and stormy night, perfect for murder. The 4 brothers sat bored in the factory, staring at each other, showing no signs of tension. They waited until past 3 in the morning. Ethan chain-smoked. Finn leaned against an oil drum, lost in thought. Jax was engrossed in a Chinese-made easy video on his laptop. What kind of divine woman could inspire such dedication? Benny, the big lug, had scrounged up some thumb-sized ball bearings from somewhere and flicked them one by one in front of the others. Ethan glanced down, then bent to pick one up. He closed one eye, aimed at the bearing near Finn's foot, and flicked his thumb. A perfect hit. Finn blinked, picked one up, and casually tossed it, knocking away the bearing in front of Benny. Benny grinned foolishly and did the same, hitting the one closest to Jax. But he used too much force, and both bearings flew far away. Jax shrugged and had to get up to retrieve them. For men in their late 20s, acting like four boys with a spark of childlike innocence, enjoying one last moment of peace before the storm. Just as Jax picked up the bearings and was aiming a shot, he caught a flicker out of the corner of his eye. The video on his laptop had frozen. The network icon in the corner showed a red X. "Oh my God," Jax marveled, looking up at the ceiling. "Our tactics have gone mainstream, have they? They're here." In an instant, the four of them snapped into combat mode. They opened their gear bags, donned bulletproof vests and night vision goggles, and put in their earpieces. They stashed the bags in an oil drum, each man grabbing an M16. They slipped out through the windows, hugging the walls to avoid the drone surveillance, and fanned out to pre-prepared cover around the factory, silently observing the enemy's movements. Thick clouds obscured the moon and stars, plunging the night into deeper darkness. The lit factory stood out like a lighthouse in a sea of ink. The wind died. Jax tapped his earpiece lightly. The other three immediately responded in kind. The hacker grinned with satisfaction. He'd had the foresight to retune their radios and Bluetooth earpieces, bypassing the drone's signal jammer. The four bodyguards outside the factory door were still lazing about, completely unaware. One of them pulled out his phone to check the time and was surprised to find he had no signal. He muttered something, and the other three instinctively checked their phones, only to find they were all dead. A sense of unease finally crept in. Ethan had told them that if the enemy came tonight, they should just scatter and run. They were not to engage in a direct firefight. Their own safety came first. They could help if they could, but if not, they should hide well. But right now, it was just a loss of signal. No one was charging in. The four exchanged a look and silently moved away from the factory, melting into the darkness. However, just as they were looking for cover, a single gunshot shattered the night's tranquility. The bodyguard hearts leaped into their throats. It was the unmistakable crack of a sniper rifle. One of them was already on the ground, his head obliterated. The other three were splattered with blood and gray matter. They broke, scrambling away in terror. A moment later, a dozen men armed with assault rifles charged toward the lit factory. They didn't get close, stopping about 30 yards away and opening fire, riddling the building with bullets. They moved in an organized formation, clearly professionally trained. The air filled with the roar of gunfire. In moments, the factory was turned into a sieve. The battery-powered lamps were all destroyed, leaving the dark complex illuminated only by an endless stream of muzzle flashes. Jax had a clear view of the attackers. A quick glance was all it took for him to marvel. They have night vision, too. Are we in Mexico, fighting a cartel again? The enemy's equipment far exceeded Ethan's expectations. Night vision goggles were available online these days, not that rare. The assault rifles weren't a huge surprise either. What stunned him was the hidden sniper. This was a well-trained assault team. "Boss, do we move?" Benny asked. He wasn't a fan of guns, but he gripped his M16 tightly, his usually good-natured face tense. "Wait," Ethan replied. He didn't know the status of the four bodyguards. He closed his eyes, frowning. After the first volley, the enemy team advanced. Half of them took up defensive positions at the factory entrance, back-to-back, while the other half charged inside. At the same time, another sniper shot rang out. A bodyguard hiding in the dark screamed and fell, a bullet in his leg. Driven by instinct, he dragged himself forward, trying to crawl to safety. Crack! Another shot, this one hitting his other knee. His screams were soul-shattering. Ethan knew the sniper was toying with him. His fists clenched. Just then, Lily's voice came through the earpiece. "I have a visual on the sniper. Have you seen their vehicles?" Ethan asked in a low voice. "No, I haven't even seen any headlights. I don't know where these guys came from." With night vision, they wouldn't need headlights. Their infiltration skills were top-notch. In truth, Ethan wasn't waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He wanted to wipe them all out in one go, to prevent them from reporting their failure to the people behind them. That way, he might be able to impersonate one of their own, follow the thread, and seize the initiative. It was better than trying to torture information out of any survivors. But he still hadn't located the drone operator. If they moved now, that person was guaranteed to be a loose end. Ethan didn't have time to think. He couldn't let his bodyguards become target practice for someone's sick entertainment, and the men inside the factory were already searching. Once they realized Marshall wasn't there, they would know it was a trap, and the operation would become infinitely harder. Move! At his command, the four brothers moved as one. Each pulled 3 grenades from his vest, pulled the pins, waited 2 seconds, and hurled them into the factory. Boom! 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 The entire building was instantly reduced to rubble. At the same moment, Lily, who had long had the enemy sniper in her sights, pulled the trigger. Crack! The sound of her shot was masked by the explosions. The enemy had no idea she existed, nor did they know that their hidden guardian, who had just been toying with his prey, had given away his position and been taken out with a single shot to the head. Of the 7 or 8 men who had rushed into the factory, only 2 had reacted fast enough to dive out a window. One had his leg blown off. The other, though unscathed, was even more unlucky. He rolled right to Benny's feet. Benny had just stood up to charge and couldn't believe his luck. A gift from heaven. The live bait his boss wanted had delivered itself to his doorstep. Without a second thought, the big man swung his rifle, knocking the gunman out cold with the buttstock. He tossed the man's weapon far away and, just to be sure, delivered a heavy punch to his face. The fist, the size of a small pot, flattened the man's nose and knocked out several teeth. The man would probably sleep until morning. Package acquired. Hearing Benny's report, Ethan no longer held back. He raised his rifle and shot down the drone, then burst from cover, laying down a hail of suppressing fire. Jax cautiously scanned their surroundings, afraid of being spotted, but he saw Finn move like a ghost, scaling the walls and disappearing into the fiery ruins of the factory. That guy! Jax marveled, then charged forward himself. The enemy team was down to 7 or 8 men. They were well trained. Though Ethan's counterattack was sudden, they reacted quickly, finding cover and returning fire. The air crackled with bullets and sparks. Both sides were evenly matched. The gunmen now knew they had walked into a trap and were facing a team even more professional than themselves. They had no intention of a prolonged fight. After a brief exchange, they began an orderly fighting retreat. But they were focused only on Ethan's team in front of them. They had no idea that 400 yards away, on a small hill to their flank, a petite, innocent-looking girl was lying prone at a vantage point, her sniper rifle at the ready, waiting for the perfect moment to shoot. The four brothers laid down a full frontal assault, pinning the enemy down as they retreated toward the factory gate. The enemy still had another building for cover in front of them, but their flank was now completely exposed to the young woman's line of sight. Now, Lily breathed, adjusted her aim slightly, and fired decisively. Crack! 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 The enemy, already down to 6 men after 2 were hit by stray bullets, was completely focused on Ethan's team. Before they could react, Lily took them all down. Her aim was flawless. Following her young master's instructions, she shot each one in the groin, then in the hands. Not fatal, but it completely neutralized their ability to fight. Watching her shoot so accurately and so rapidly, with almost no time between shots to aim, even Finn, a former special agent proficient with all firearms, was impressed. Hitting a target at 400 yards was easy for a sniper, but doing it with such speed and precision was another matter entirely. Sniping was a gift, and it was clear that girl was blessed by the heavens. The firefight was finally over. Ethan let out a breath. Just as he relaxed, a massive explosion erupted in the distance to the southwest. He looked toward the sound. The glow of the fire was on the only access road to the factory. Soon, Lily reported in. I see it. 3 vehicles were blown up. There's one more leaving at high speed, but it's blocked by a hill. I don't have a shot. Let him go, Ethan sighed. After a pause, he instructed, stay put for now. Keep an eye on the surroundings. Yes, sir. The driver of the escaping vehicle had to be the drone operator. Even though Ethan had shot down the drone, the gunmen all had earpieces. The operator would have known exactly what was happening on the battlefield and likely reported it to his superiors already. Killing him now was pointless. Just then, the 2 surviving bodyguards walked over, their faces a mixture of terror and guilt. Their boss had sent them to protect the young master, but tonight they had become the ones being protected. Then again, did this young master even need protection? Only you 2 left, Ethan asked, frowning. Yeah, one of the bodyguards managed to nod. One was shot in the head. The other, he was only shot in the legs at first, but he was killed by a stray bullet. Ethan's heart was heavy. He took a deep breath. Help out. We'll talk about the rest later. They gathered everyone who was still breathing into another factory building. Then they split up. Benny took the 2 bodyguards to put out the fire in the first building. Jax went to retrieve the gear bags and his computer from the oil drum. Ethan and Finn began to interrogate the captured soldiers of fortune. Unlike Nero's men, who were easily broken, these gunmen lived with their heads on the block. They had seen too much blood and likely made peace with death long ago. Simple threats and bribes wouldn't work. While cleaning up, one of them had tried to grab a gun to kill himself. Better to die on your own terms than be tortured to death. But Finn, with his quick reflexes, had severed his hand with his cookery. Sometimes dying wasn't so easy. Ethan lit a cigarette, his eyes cold as he looked at the row of defeated men, some kneeling, some sitting. "I'll only say this once," he said, his lips barely moving. "Only one of you gets to live. Tell me something I want to hear, and I'll keep my word." The gunmen, all shot in the groin, were gritting their teeth in pain, sweat pouring down their faces. They glared at Ethan with hatred, silent. Only the one Benny had knocked out was less injured. Though his face wasn't contorted in pain, his eyes held the same burning hatred. Ethan chambered a round in his pistol, seemingly at random, but he chose the two most severely injured men and sent them on their way. Seeing the others were not only unafraid, but even more hateful, Ethan wasn't surprised. He holstered his pistol, patted Finn on the arm, and walked out of the building. He called Victor to report he was safe, then called Leo to have him send the actor home. He also told him to have the two bodyguards at the Villa drive over to the factory for pickup. Hanging up, Ethan listened to the blood-curdling screams from inside the building without even a glance. He sat on the steps outside, smoking silently. A little while later, Benny and Jax, along with the two bodyguards, finished their work and came over, panting. Ethan, probably not wanting the bodyguards to have nightmares, sent them to stand watch at the main gate. Benny and Jax knew what Finn was doing inside, just from the sounds. They exchanged a look and sat down on either side of Ethan. "Honestly, that emotionless guy, he reminds me of that top chef, Hannibal," Jax muttered. "Oh my God, even Hannibal wouldn't carve up a person alive. Jack the Ripper is probably a better fit. Someone has to do the dirty work," Ethan said with a faint smile. "Besides, we're all going to hell anyway, and they don't deserve to live." Jax shrugged. "You're not wrong. These damn idiots. They shot through the oil drum and ruined my $40,000 custom-built laptop. Look, too big, too big." The hacker momentarily forgot the word he was looking for. Ethan glanced at the two holes in the laptop. "Holes? Right, damn it. Too big donuts." Ethan was silent. Benny couldn't help but chuckle. "Boss, give him 2 good slaps, and he'll remember big holes." Jack shot back. "Shut up, you damn muck. I know slap is what that means. You want me to beat the shit out of you? You want me to puke all over you?" Outside the factory, it was all laughs and peaceful camaraderie. Inside, it was a methodical, merciless dissection. Ethan wasn't worried. He had time. The night's outcome wasn't perfect, but it wasn't a total loss. The gunman might be tough now, but after Finn carved up a few more, someone would break. There's no greater suffering than wanting to live, but being unable to, and wanting to die, but being denied. That was precisely why the true culprits from 10 years ago were so desperate to silence Gene Marshall. But there was still a problem. Why hadn't Marshall's daughter made a move? Ethan had a feeling his previous assumptions were off. Could there be another reason Marshall wasn't silenced back then? And where was his daughter now? Regardless, the ghost of Gene Marshall had served its purpose. It had finally lured the snakes out of their hole. He just hoped they'd get something useful tonight. With Finn's methods, he wasn't worried about no one talking. He was worried they knew too little to provide any valuable information. Ethan took a breath and instinctively reached for his cigarettes, only to find the pack empty. He crushed it and tossed it on the ground. As he brought his hand back, he brushed against Benny's side. The big man's face contorted in pain for a split second before returning to normal. Ethan felt a sticky wetness on the back of his hand. He lifted it and looked closely. In the darkness, he couldn't see the color, but he could smell the faint scent of blood. His heart dropped. "Benny, you son of a bitch, you've been shot." Ethan scrambled to his feet, turned on his phone's flashlight, and shone it on Benny's waist. The big man's shirt was soaked through with blood. Lily, hearing Ethan's panicked voice over the comms, asked with concern, "Benny, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Benny said, scratching his head with a goofy grin. "Just a scratch." Ethan was too tense to speak. He carefully lifted Benny's shirt. It was a gash, not too deep, but not shallow either, carved by a bullet. His nerves were still frayed. He checked Benny all over, and seeing no other wounds, he finally relaxed. He smacked the big oaf on the back of the neck. "Doesn't that hurt, you moron? Couldn't you have said something? You scared the hell out of me." Benny ducked his head with a chuckle. "It doesn't hurt. It's nothing. Lily, I'm fine." Just then, as if by telepathy, the three of them turned their heads in unison. In the faint light of the phone, Finn stood at the factory entrance, covered in blood, his curved cookery in hand. His face was devoid of expression, a terrifying, ghost-like figure. The killing machine's eyes were fixed on Benny's wound, his knuckles cracking. After a moment, He turned back into the factory and asked calmly, "Who shot the big guy just now?" "You all want to die, didn't you? I'm giving you a chance. Step forward and admit it. No guts? Then we'll continue one by one. My technique will be much more refined this time." The remaining gunmen looked at his utterly placid face, then at the gruesome, mangled corpse barely visible in the dim light, their minds replaying Finn's brutal methods. How could anyone on Earth do such things without even frowning? His emotional state was more stable than swatting a fly. The hatred they'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by a growing unease. Who will be the first to break? Ethan quickly bandaged Benny's wound. "There are bandages in the gear bag," he grumbled. "Couldn't you just say something so I could patch you up? Do you think I'm going to charge you? You brainless elf. If this happens again, I'll kick you all the way back to your circus." Benny mumbled, "I was going to ask Lily to patch me up when we got back." Ethan was speechless. Lily's voice came over the comms. "Sir, you should kick him back to the circus." Jax chimed in, "Moron. A real heavyweight. A brain-dead moron." Benny looked wounded. "Boss, you hear him? He's bringing that up again." Ethan laughed and kicked Jax lightly. "Don't be such a smartass." Jax raised an eyebrow. "I'm just telling the TR." Before he could finish, Benny sat on him, pinning him to the ground. "I'll show you what a heavyweight is." "Fuck. Cough, cough. Be boss. Help. Save. Save me." Ethan watched the show with a grin. "You started it. You can't beat anyone, yet your mouth is so sharp. Not even the heavens can save you now." "Ha. Benny, sit on him for a minute." Everyone was having a show, except for Jax, who was getting flattened. When it came to his brothers, Ethan always seemed to have a soft spot for Benny. On major operations, he worried most about Benny, who wasn't comfortable with guns. The others didn't think he was playing favorites. After all, the big guy was a little slower than a normal person. But there was another reason. Ethan owed Benny a debt he could never repay. In fact, Benny hadn't always been slow. On the contrary, he used to be quite crafty. In terms of seniority as an outlaw, he'd been in the game even longer than Ethan. Benny's real name was Zhang Jiming. His parents were devout Buddhists with close ties to an old monk at a Shaolin temple. But fate was cruel. When he was young, his parents died in an accident. The old monk, seeing him orphaned and alone, took him into the monastery. But the kid had no affinity for Buddhism. Chanting and meditating were like sitting on needles. It took him 2 years to memorize a single scripture, and he was constantly sneaking out to eat meat, occasionally snatching a chicken or duck from a nearby farm. He was a constant source of complaint among his peers. But the old monk doted on him, always defending him and preventing his expulsion. As he used to say, the rule against eating meat wasn't set by the Buddha himself. "You have such a strong physique. A little supplement is understandable. The Buddha won't blame you. All karma is Buddhist karma." And it was true. You couldn't build a body that big on vegetables alone. When he was 15, the old monk passed away, and Benny was naturally expelled. Fortunately, he had trained at Shaolin since childhood and had real skills. By chance, he joined a traveling circus, performing feats like breaking stones on his chest, chopping bricks with his bare hands, and the tortoise breathing technique to make a living. After 6 months of this quiet life, the circus was invited to perform on a cruise ship. The ship hit a reef and sank, and they were attacked by mercenaries. The mercenary captain, seeing how ferociously the big monk fought, took a liking to his talent and brought him back to their lair. And just like that, Benny joined their crew. Later, when they found a near-dead Ethan on a deserted island, the other mercenaries saw he had no valuables and returned to the ship, leaving him to die. But when Benny heard Ethan mutter something in Chinese, he was shocked and excited. He ignored the others' protests and resolutely carried Ethan back with them. At the time, Ethan's injuries were severe, his entire back infected and festering. The mercenary captain, though he knew it was hopeless, gave Benny face and found a doctor. The doctor just shook his head, but a miracle happened. No one knew what belief kept the horribly injured young man alive. As he recovered, Ethan was still a frail scholar, naturally looked down upon by the rough mercenaries. But Benny always protected him. To get his revenge, Ethan began to hone himself. While others drank, he trained. While others feasted, he practiced with knives and guns, rain or shine. He learned to drive from the mercenary captain, who loved fast cars. Gradually, he stood out from the crowd of lazy, pleasure-seeking mercenaries and earned the captain's deep respect. Dignity is earned. In most walks of life, hard work and ambition will get you to the top. That's an eternal truth. Of course, this doesn't apply to government contracting or legacy banking, where it's all about who your father is. Later, during an operation, Ethan's group was ambushed by the Coast Guard. Benny nearly drowned while saving him. Though he was rescued by reinforcements, His brain was damaged from the lack of oxygen, severely lowering his intelligence. For years, Ethan took him to countless hospitals for treatment, which resulted in his current state. He was still a bit slow, but at least he was functional. For Ethan, Benny had given him a second life twice. This immense debt of gratitude transcended brotherhood. It was a debt he could never repay. As the two brothers were fooling around, a phone started vibrating in Jax's gear bag. The three of them froze. Benny quickly got up, and Jax, as if granted a pardon, gasped for air while he rummaged through the bag, pulling out a pile of cell phones. These phones belonged to the gunman. With his computer destroyed, the hacker was like a sniper without a rifle, a poet without a pen. He had collected all their phones to take back and crack with his backup computer, hoping to find something useful. He found the vibrating phone and quickly handed it to Ethan. Seeing the unknown number on the screen, Ethan took out his own phone, started a recording, and only then answered, putting it on speaker. He held his breath, waiting for the other person to speak. The line was eerily silent. After 7 or 8 seconds, a middle-aged man's soft sigh came through. "Young Master Vance?" Ethan frowned, his voice calm. "Who is this?" "That's not important." "Heh." The man chuckled, his voice chilling. "Was it fun, playing games with us?" Ethan's grip on the phone tightened, his tone unreadable. "Just killing a pack of wild dogs. It was boring. I really underestimated you, you whelp. I never thought that not only are you hard to kill, but you're quite capable too. We should have dealt with you the moment you returned to the country." "Too bad for you. You probably won't get another chance." Ethan laughed. "You should worry about yourself. You'd better hope I never find you. I'll send your whole family to hell. I won't even spare your dog." The man was dismissive. "A word of advice. Stop digging," he sneered. "It's doubtful you'll ever find me, but I know who you are. I know who your family is. And that beautiful wife of yours. Heh. Anyway, I'm not interested in you right now. But if you provoke me again, I will make everyone around you wish they were dead." "You think I care?" Ethan scoffed. "My so-called family? Go ahead, do what you want with them. And I have plenty of women. When it comes down to it, in this whole world, I only care about you. All of you. So you'd better take care of yourselves. At least, don't any of you die before I find you. Then take your time looking. Heh. And a little reminder, don't expect to get anything out of the men I sent. They're just hired thugs who do dirty work. I have no use for them now, anyway. Do whatever you want with them. But don't forget to kill them for me when you're done. A bunch of wastes of air. You don't have to remind me. I wasn't counting on them. I never planned on leaving any of them alive during the firefight." Ethan said, feigning nonchalance. "Oh," the man replied. "Sounds like you have someone else you can count on. Jean Marshall, perhaps?" "Ha ha. Do you really take me for an idiot? You probably killed him long ago. If you could really get anything out of him, would you have gone to such lengths to lure us out?" Ethan's tone was mocking. "Why don't you? GUSS." At that moment, Ethan was certain. The real purpose of this call was to probe for information on whether Jean Marshall was dead or alive. After all, the drone had captured a clear image of his face. Sure enough, the man on the other end fell silent. After a moment, he laughed dismissively. "It doesn't matter. Even if Marshall is alive, he won't say anything. Sending my men to silence him today was just an insurance policy. You should stop wasting your time. Listen to me. Live your life of wealth and privilege in peace. Life is short. Don't go looking for death." Heh. Through all the dynasties, countless methods of torture have been invented. Which one do you think Marshall will hold out against? Ethan's voice was laced with derision. "I'm not in a hurry. I have all the time in the world to attend to him. You shouldn't be in a hurry either. Just wait for me patiently." Heh. Speaking of which, why didn't you kill him back then? Leaving behind a ticking time bomb like that. That was your mistake. Or maybe it was fate giving me a chance. The man snorted. "Why don't you go ask Marshall himself? See if he'll tell you." Humph. With that, he hung up. Ethan took a deep breath. After a moment of thought, he redialed the number. A message said the number was no longer in service. Jax's expression was grim. It was a burner number. They were afraid we'd trace it. Damn it. If he were right here in front of me, I'd tear him to pieces. Benny said, furious. Ethan tossed the phone to Jax and walked back into the factory, playing the recording for everyone to hear. Hearing the phrases, "hired thugs who do dirty work, I have no use for them now, and kill them for me when you're done," a bunch of wastes of air, the gunmen looked at each other, their expressions growing more complicated by the second. Ethan said nothing. Finn continued his work. As the minutes ticked by, the psychological torment began to wear down the gunman's resolve. Suddenly, Finn stood up. "Boss," he said abruptly, "they have the same tattoo." Ethan moved closer. On the chests of the two corpses on the floor was a thumb-sized black spade tattoo, like the suit from a deck of cards. He frowned, bringing his phone's light closer. In the center of the spade was a half-open, blood-red eye, shaped like a serpent's. Looks like an organization. Ethan muttered. He turned and checked the remaining survivors. Without exception, they all had the same tattoo on their chests. The Spade Gang. Benny asked, scratching his head. Jack shot him a look. You hick. The Black Spade sounds good, Finn said, blinking as he earnestly tried to guess the name. Why not the All-Seeing Eye? Ethan's gaze swept over the three of them, his expression even more serious than Finn's. I'm guessing it's the All-Seeing Spade Poker Club. The three of them couldn't help but laugh. Only Finn's face remained impassive, though a smile played in his mind. The gunmen looked at each other. For some reason, the more the four brothers laughed, the more terrified they became. Suddenly, one of them began to tremble. It's the celestial axis. The mercenaries all whipped their heads toward the man who had spoken, the one Benny had beaten half to death. A barely perceptible smile touched Ethan's lips. He didn't ask another question. Instead, he slowly pulled the pistol from his waistband, clicked off the safety, and racked the slide. Ethan had said only one could live. An invisible pressure began to suffocate the cavernous, dark factory. The mechanical clicks of the handgun were a stark contrast to the increasingly ragged breathing of the captured gunman. Suddenly, the second man from the left burst into a fit of laughter. Ethan shifted the beam of his phone's flashlight, illuminating a face slick with sweat, pale, and utterly defiant. The man was half reclined due to a leg injury, his limbs trembling uncontrollably, the crotch of his pants stained a dark, wet red. Kyuso Yero Shine. The sudden outburst in Japanese left Ethan's men momentarily stunned. The Japanese gunman, knowing his end was near, laughed with even greater abandon. He glanced at his comrades, muttering something in broken English about spineless cowards and how they were all going to die anyway. Then his eyes locked onto Ethan, and he unleashed a torrent of slurs in his native tongue. The expressions on Ethan and his men turned strange, like they had stumbled upon a hidden treasure, a mix of surprise, delight, and vicious excitement. Hearing the gunman spit out Bakayero, Benny cracked a wicked grin. He took 2 long strides forward and stomped his boot directly onto the man's bleeding groin. A scream tore through the factory, sharp and agonizing. The big man had always been a man of half-mercies, but for a man like this, even that half had vanished. His massive hands shot out, easily dislocating the gunman's jaw. Then, with one hand clamping the man's neck to hold his head still, the other reached into his mouth. Bakayero, Benny chuckled. All right, I'll grant your wish. Let's pull that stupid tooth of yours. With that, Benny, who loved to sing, began to hum a popular children's tune he'd heard recently. Pop, goes, the weasel. A simple toothache is unbearable for most. What Benny was doing, yanking out teeth one by one with his bare hands, was a different dimension of agony. The gunman's continuous, pig-like squeals told the story. The other captives unconsciously clamped their mouths shut, their scalps crawling with dread. Soon, both rows of the gunman's teeth were gone, his mouth a fountain of thick, viscous blood. Yet he remained defiant. We Japanese, we have strong bones. We have guts. We're not afraid to die. The spirit of Bushido lives forever. Ethan sneered. Guts? Then why can't you admit to the atrocities you committed in World War II? All you have are cowards, right? A bunch of gutless worms. You don't deserve to exist in this world. Benny continued. On it, boss, Benny replied. He tilted his massive head, thinking. The teeth were gone, but what about the hair? All around the mulberry bush. The big man's work was brutally efficient, yanking out clumps of hair, taking chunks of scalp with them. The searing pain was a living death. The gunman's eyes rolled back in his head as he teetered on the edge of consciousness. But he knew this was just the appetizer. If he kept his mouth shut, what came next would be the kind of butchery that defied imagination. He wished now that he hadn't fought back, that a stray bullet had found him. If he had a knife, he would have committed seppuku without hesitation. Just as Benny gripped the last tuft of his hair, the man who had been spewing righteous defiance finally broke. I'll talk. Arg. Benny looked at the clump of hair in his hand and grumbled. My reflexes are slow. Couldn't stop in time. Ethan's voice was laced with mockery. I thought you had strong bones. You Americans have an old saying, the man gasped, a bad life is better than a good death. I want to go home, see the cherry blossoms. With my mother. A monster has a mother. Ethan chuckled coldly. The gunman's face was a mask of agony. He spoke in broken fragments. We're from a celestial. The celestial axis. Ethan remained silent, waiting. Our superior is called the Vulture. Ethan blinked. That's it. We usually live at the Vulture's house. Summit View Estates. A08. That's it. Ethan pressed. The gunman took several quick, shallow breaths, then shook his head weakly. I'm just a low-level killer. I really don't know anything else. Ethan took a deep breath and scanned the other captives. I said only one of you gets to live. Aren't you going to fight for it? The others exchanged glances. The one who had spoken first finally broke the silence. We were all recruited by the Vulture. Most of us were mercs overseas, some worked for security firms. At his words, the floodgates opened. There are 23 of us in total. Only 19 came today. Besides those here and the ones who died, one other got away. Named Spike. He's a tech guy. The Vulture is bald. He has a mole on his chin. Spike is black. Wears his hair in dreads. On and on they went, but those were the only useful scraps. Ethan rubbed his chin. That's all. They shook their heads like rattle toys. The Japanese gunman, fighting through the pain, added, we really are just grunts. Like the man in the recording said, we only do the dirty work. Let me go. I'll go back to my country. I'll never set foot on this land again. Ethan frowned. The person in the recording wasn't the Vulture. They all shook their heads. No. We couldn't tell who it was either. So what kind of dirty work have you done? Ethan asked. Who have you killed for the Celestial Axis before? One man scrambled to answer. We've taken out some gang leaders, a few businessmen, but we never knew their identities. The Vulture only ever gave us a location and a photo of the target. Right, another chimed in. We didn't even know who you were. The Vulture just gave us a photo of the target. It must have been the Gene Marshall mentioned in the recording. No wonder the mysterious caller had been so confident. These hired guns couldn't provide any truly valuable intel. Tossing out a name like the Vulture was meaningless. He would have cleared out of his house long ago. Ethan sighed, then kicked the Japanese gunman hard. He glanced at Finn. He's yours. Without a word, Finn grabbed the man's collar and dragged him aside. His kukri gleamed menacingly in the dim light. Your ancestors enjoyed live dissections, Finn said, his voice eerily calm. How could you not try it for yourself? You're going back on your word. I told you the most. The gunman shrieked, his eyes fixed on Ethan, now pools of pure terror. I have to see the cherry blossoms with my mother. I'm begging you. What kind of word do I need to keep with a monster? Ethan smiled, then looked playfully at the others. Of course, with you lot, I'll keep my promise. But you all said about the same amount of stuff. Who should I spare? They looked at each other, their expressions growing more complex. How about this? Ethan said, his voice dripping with amusement. I'll give you the chance. You choose. The looks they exchanged grew darker. A moment later, the man Benny had knocked out earlier made his move. In a flash, he twisted the neck of the man next to him, the one whose leg had been blown off. The others saw it. Their eyes darted back and forth. The man who had acted first was the least injured. Logically, they should team up to take him down. But in a life-or-death moment, who could you trust? They were brothers brought together by money, not loyalty. And so, the dog-eat-dog fight began. A few minutes later, the factory fell quiet. In the end, only the gunman Benny had first knocked unconscious remained alive. Man is destined to be selfish. Human nature. Victor Vance really understood it. Ethan thought with a sigh. He looked at the survivor and smiled. I had my eye on you from the start. You didn't disappoint. The man was panting heavily, his eyes squeezed shut. I know, he begged. I'm still going to die. But I hope. You'll make it quick. It was hard to imagine the psychological trauma Finn's handiwork had inflicted on him. Ethan walked over and holstered his pistol. Hearing the footsteps approach, the gunman squeezed his eyes shut tighter, his entire body trembling, even his breath shaking. But instead of a bullet, a hand clapped him on the shoulder. I'm not a man who goes back on his word, Ethan said with a laugh. What's your name, brother? The gunman's eyes flew open, his expression one of pure shock. He stared for a long moment before stammering, Leo. Leo Nash. Leo, you were a mercenary? Yes. What are your plans now? The question stunned Leo. He just stared blankly at Ethan. Ethan pulled him to his feet. How much was your monthly salary? 20,000, Leo said after a pause. More for an op. 20K. Ethan feigned astonishment. You're selling your life for $20,000 a month? He gestured to his 3 men. You know what I pay them? Leo swallowed hard. 50,000, 80. Ethan scoffed. You're missing a zero. This celestial axis of yours is pretty cheap. Huh? In truth, Ethan never paid his men a salary. They all knew his bank account numbers and passwords. If anyone needed money, they just had to get a card from Benny and spend whatever they wanted. They didn't even have to tell him. Leo didn't know what Ethan's game was, but he had a growing feeling he might not have to die. You can't go back to the celestial axis now, Ethan said. I don't suppose. You be interested in working for me? Huh? I. Leo was utterly flabbergasted, unsure how to respond. Ethan slung an arm over his shoulder. You're ruthless, you've got some skills, and you're ex-military. That's my kind of guy. You saw it yourself. My guys are elite, but there are only 3 of them. If we hadn't ambushed you with grenades tonight, the outcome might have been different. The point is, I'm short-handed. Come work for me. You're just in it for the money, right? I won't hold tonight against you, and I'll make sure you're well compensated from now on. Good fortune after surviving a disaster? Leo didn't buy it. Ethan had some other motive for keeping him around, but if he refused now, he'd likely get a bullet for his trouble. Seeing his hesitation, Ethan continued. You're not from around here, are you? You can say no. I'll let you go. But are you really confident you can get out of Port Sterling in one piece? The Celestial Axis. You know what they're capable of better than I do. Even if you manage to get out of the city and go home, they won't let you go. You'll just get your family killed. Leo gritted his teeth. After a moment of thought, he said hesitantly, Can I really join you? You guys, you're so incredible. Compared to you, I feel like a factory reject. Ethan laughed. Don't sell yourself short. Leo, from now on, you're one of us. My name is Ethan Vance. If you like, call me boss. If you're not used to it, mister. Vance is fine too. Leo still looked uneasy. Boss, Ethan. Ethan clapped him on the arm. That's more like it. I'll start you at $100,000 a month. Once you're integrated with the team, you can name your price. I don't have many virtues, but I do have a lot of money. You put your life on the line for me, and I guarantee you'll have more money than you could spend in a lifetime. Fellas, from now on, we've got one more brother. Ha ha ha. Benny scratched his head, looking bewildered. This Leo guy had no more use, did he? What was the boss up to? Finn blinked calmly and gave a polite nod. Hello, Leo. Leo looked at the blood-soaked hand Finn extended and shook it with a tremor. Jax's lips curled into a faint smile. He glanced at Benny, whose mental processors were clearly overheating again. Dumbass, he quipped. Big old dumbass. Benny bristled. I'm gonna kill you, you little shit talker. 40 minutes later, 2 of Ethan's bodyguards arrived at the factory in a Hummer. Ethan waved his men into the vehicles. Since the Audis the guards had brought earlier were now wreckage, they piled into one car with Benny and Lily, while the rest took the other. On the way, Ethan asked Jax, your backup laptop? All that black hat tech is ready to go, right? Hacking into a surveillance system, any problem? No problem at all, Jax said. Are we heading to the Vulture's place? I doubt we'll find anything useful. Let's go take a look, Ethan said. Summit View Estates is on the way from Emerald Lake, so it's not out of our way. We'll swing by my place first and grab the laptop. Got it. Leo hesitated for a moment, likely wanting to show his loyalty. I have a key card for the community, he offered. The security guards won't let us in otherwise. Ethan smiled and nodded, but said nothing. After reaching Emerald Lake Estates, Ethan told Benny to get some rest and instructed Lily to redress his wounds. Once Jax had his laptop, the group hurried off to Summit View Estates. Along the way, Jax used his skills to cause momentary glitches in every surveillance camera they passed. Once the car was out of frame, the feed would return to normal. On the monitor, it would look like a brief stutter, not a black screen. It was almost impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. The display of skill left Leo gawking. You're way better than Spike, he exclaimed. That son of a bitch only knew how to break the cameras. When they reached Summit View, the license plate reader didn't recognize their vehicle. Leo produced his key card, and the security guard raised the gate, saving them some trouble. With Leo guiding them, they soon arrived at Villa A08. Jax's fingers flew across the keyboard. A moment later, the feeds from inside the villa appeared on his screen. 7 cameras. Hearing the number, Leo frowned and muttered. He was watching us like we were thieves. Spike must have installed these. He and the Vulture were the closest, and we treated him like a brother. Ethan smiled. Don't worry, I'd never treat you like that. Jax, shut down all the cameras. Leo, Finn, you're with me. Roger that. Jax said aloud. He caught Ethan's eye, and his fingers flew across the keyboard in a flurry of keystrokes. He disabled 5 of the cameras. 2, protected by complex passwords, remained active. In his world, most passwords were a mere formality. These 2 were no exception. The 3 men moved stealthily to the villa's front door. Leo entered the code to unlock it. Just as he pulled it open a crack, Ethan's hand clamped down on his. Careful, Ethan whispered. What if someone's still inside? He passed his own pistol to Leo. Leo's mouth fell open. He couldn't believe Ethan would trust him like this. Wasn't he afraid he'd shoot him in the back? Ethan offered a faint smile. You're one of us now. Take it. Don't be difficult. Leo nodded firmly. He took a deep breath, then threw the door open and charged in, with Ethan and Finn right behind him. The villa was dead silent. After a quick scan, Leo found the switch for the living room lights. As he turned back, he saw him, Spike, lying in a pool of blood at the foot of the stairs. Spike, he's dead. Leo's expression was grim as he pointed at the body. Ethan glanced over, unsurprised. The man behind this would have anticipated that the captured gunman would give up Spike's description. Killing him was the best way to eliminate any leads. A moment later, Finn's head popped out from bathroom. Boss, the vulture's dead too. Ethan's brow furrowed. It seemed the vulture wasn't a key figure in the celestial axis either. A chill ran down Leo's spine. He sprinted upstairs. Moments later, he came running back down in a panic. They're all dead. The guys who didn't join the op tonight, they're dead too. Damn it, the celestial axis. How could they do this to us? Our whole unit. It's gone. Ethan and Finn went upstairs, their eyes scanning the bodies. From the signs of struggle, it was clear they had fought back, but they'd been completely outmatched. Finn examined the bullet wounds, mentally reconstructing the fight. High probability it was a single operative, he said. Look at this one. Hyoid bone crushed. And the bullet placement on these two to the chest, one to the head. A Mozambique drill, perfect for close quarters. Either a highly trained professional assassin or special forces. Ethan nodded. Not a high probability. It was one person. We need to be careful. The celestial axis has real masters. Just as he finished, Jax's voice came through his earpiece. Boss, there's a camera about 10, 12 feet to your left. Without changing his expression, Ethan turned to the shell-shocked Leo. Leo, you okay? Leo slowly shook his head, his jaw tight. I will not rest until the celestial axis is destroyed. With that, he strode toward Ethan and dropped to one knee. Boss, from now on, I'll follow you to the death. I swear I'll make the celestial axis pay. Ethan gave a roguish grin. Hey, get up. Anyone who didn't know better would think you were proposing to me. Leo stood up, but then suddenly raised the pistol and aimed it at Ethan. Ethan's eyebrows lifted slightly, but his expression didn't change. Finn's hand went to the cross on his chest, but he made no other move. In the next instant, Leo reversed the gun and handed it back to Ethan. Boss, when you gave me the gun earlier, were you testing me? If I'm not mistaken, there were no bullets in it, right? Don't worry. Since I've decided to follow you, I won't have any second thoughts. Ethan smirked and ejected the magazine, flashing it in front of Leo's face. Fully loaded, Leo flushed, realizing he had judged a gentleman by his own cynical standards. Ethan reinserted the magazine, tossed the gun to Finn, and then slung an arm around Leo's shoulders. He walked casually, deliberately, toward the active camera. I'm a big-hearted guy, he said as they walked. I trust my people. You call me boss, so I see you as a brother. Just do good work for me and don't overthink things. In the car, Jack saw Ethan and Leo enter the camera's view and tapped lightly on his microphone. Finn, with his back to them, removed the magazine from the pistol Ethan had just tossed him. He expertly ejected the top 2 blank cartridges and silently replaced them with live rounds. Boss, Leo nodded, his eyes filled with sincere gratitude, like a prize stallion that had finally found its master. From this day forward, I, Leo Nash, will follow your lead to the ends of the earth. Ethan nodded, satisfied. He very naturally took the pistol back from Finn. Good man, I don't have much to give you right now, but this gun has been with me for years. From now on, it's yours. Ignoring Leo's protests, he pressed the pistol firmly into Leo's hands, a gesture that couldn't help but stir a feeling of gratitude in the man's heart. The entire scene of brotherly bonding was captured clearly by the camera overhead. Afterward, the 3 of them searched the villa from top to bottom. As expected, they found nothing of use and had to return home empty-handed. Back at the house, Finn fell into his routine, sitting before the bronze panther statue and beginning to read from his Bible. Benny and Lily had already gone to bed. Ethan had Jax prepare a room for Leo. In the meantime, Leo watched Finn, who was reciting scripture with solemn focus, his expression a kaleidoscope of confusion. A psychopath who killed people as easily as butchering chickens. Yet he had the face of an innocent and worshiped Jesus. Thinking about the people around Ethan, it seemed none of them were quite normal. A blonde, unassuming-looking man who was a world-class hacker. A hulking giant with the strength of a tiger. And a petite, fragile-looking young woman who was always timid, but was a sniper of godlike skill. Monsters. They're all damn monsters, Leo thought in amazement. He paused, then asked Ethan, Boss, I hear you calling them 3, 4, and 5. So, where's number 2? Ethan smiled faintly. Him? He's busy with something lately. I'll introduce you to later. He's a pretty easygoing guy, gets along with everyone. From now on, you're number 6. Okay. Whatever you say, boss. Number 6. Why does that sound weird? Ethan just smiled, gave a few simple instructions, and went up to his bedroom. The fierce battle tonight had left him exhausted. He took a hot shower and sank into bed, his mind replaying the night's operation. All he'd learned was that the shadowy organization was called the Celestial Axis. Every other useful lead had been scrubbed clean. The result fell far short of his expectations and didn't justify the elaborate show he'd put on. Still, he'd gained a new brother. Hopefully, this number 6 would prove to be as helpful as he hoped. Ethan sighed in frustration and, a short while later, drifted into a heavy sleep. At 8 in the morning, Ethan, in a rare moment of sleeping in, was jolted awake by a relentless barrage of calls and a storm of messages. He glanced at his phone, thoroughly annoyed. It was all the department heads from the company. Some needed the president's signature, others needed the company's seal, and a slew of other trivial matters required his direction. Ethan's patience wore thin. He was about to turn off his phone and get some more sleep, but then he remembered his promise to Isabel to manage the company properly. If he slacked off and abandoned his duties now, it wouldn't sit right. Ugh, running a legitimate business was definitely not as carefree as being an arms dealer, where you could work for 6 months and live off the profit for the next 2 years. Ethan sighed, got up, and washed his face. He thought about calling Benny or Finn for backup, in case of trouble, but then remembered how exhausted they must have been last night. Finn probably hadn't even gone to sleep until dawn. Not having the heart to disturb them, he drove to the office alone. After dealing with the company's tedious affairs, Ethan called Victor, who told him he was at Phoenix Crest Manor. Ethan immediately headed over. It was noon, the sun was bright, and a gentle breeze was blowing. Victor Vance was sitting in a waterside pavilion by the manor's lake, holding a first-grade English quiz. Beside him, his 6-year-old daughter, his little treasure, clutched a toy fishing rod, sitting on a fishing platform fitted with a safety railing, engrossed in her task. Victor turned the paper over and over, his gaze finally landing on the big, red 36-foot at the top. His face grew pale. "Lucy, honey, Daddy's a little confused. How did you only score a 36 in English? That's practically your other native tongue. You even got the alphabetical order wrong." The little doll considered the question seriously, pouting, "I don't like English anymore. I like math." Victor was surprised, but pleased. "So what did you get in math?" "In the school bag." Victor took the bag from a maid, pulled out a crumpled math quiz, and nearly had a heart attack when he saw the 27-foot in the scorebox. "Lucy, you only like it. You don't bother to learn it? How does 1 + 3 = 5? And this 5 you've written is..." "It's quite something." Lucy Vance blinked her big, watery eyes and said in a childlike voice, "The teacher said to count on our fingers. That's what I did. 1 finger plus 3 fingers equals 5 fingers. People have 5 fingers." Victor took a deep, calming breath and pulled another paper from the bag. A language arts quiz. 16. Cough, cough. Victor felt a tightness in his chest and patted it hard. Seeing this, the little doll pouted and mumbled, "Don't die, don't die. I know a line from a poem. I'll recite it for you." Victor inhaled sharply, his face a mask of sorrow. "Go on. Let me hear what this $50,000 a year private school has taught you." Lucy puffed out her cheeks, thought for a long time, and then recited loudly, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." Victor waited for the next line. 10 seconds passed. "That's it." Victor's eyes went wide. Lucy was indignant. "I told you, I only know one line. The teacher taught me piano and crafts. I will do a lot." "Humph. You adults are so annoying. You only care about grades. I want to eat roast duck, and you don't even care." Completely defeated, Victor glanced at the maid. "Call the driver. Tell him to go buy a roast duck." He put the 3 quizzes back into Lucy's little backpack. Seeing the mess inside, he decided to tidy it up. As he did, he happened upon his father's jade signet ring, worth millions, and a delicate porcelain teapot that Theodore Vance had cherished for years. It was clear the old man truly adored this little doll. Lucy could never have gotten her hands on that teapot without his permission. Victor smiled, pretending he hadn't seen anything. He finished tidying the bag and tucked the 2 priceless items back inside. Just then, Ethan arrived. When father and son met, they weren't strangers, but they weren't exactly close either. Victor chuckled and called out, "Son." Ethan responded with a lukewarm, title-less grunt, as always. "Yeah, came to ask you about something." Lucy blinked her big eyes, looking timidly at her brother for a moment before puffing her cheeks out and saying mischievously, "Wow, a creepy old man." Ethan was speechless. "Lucy, go play with your sister," Victor said, giving the maid a look. The maid carefully lifted the little heiress out from behind the railing. As they passed Ethan, Lucy suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck. "Brother, I want you to hold me." Looking at the adorable face so close to his, Ethan put on a fierce expression, but his heart melted. The little doll, terrified, shrank back into the maid's arms, yelling, "Go, go, go." Once they were a safe distance away, she held up her hand and counted her fingers. 1, 2, 5. 1 plus 3 is 5. There are 5 fingers. Now that they were alone in the pavilion, Victor asked, "What is it? Any progress last night?" "A little," Ethan said. "First, a warning for you. Be careful these next few days. I was warned last night, but I didn't listen. I deliberately provoked him. I also made sure he couldn't be certain if Jean Marshall is dead or alive. I think he'll retaliate against me soon, and he'll act again to confirm whether Jean is really dead." "Who?" Victor asked, frowning. "You think I know who he is?" Ethan retorted. "Anyway, I need to ask you about something. A group called the Celestial Axis. Have you?" "The Celestial Axis?" Victor's shock cut him off. "This is related to the Celestial Axis?" Victor's extreme reaction surprised Ethan. He had guessed his father might have heard of them, but he hadn't expected this. It seemed Victor knew a lot more than he let on. "From what I can tell, it's definitely connected to them," Ethan said. "You seem to know a lot about them." Victor looked incredulous. "Did the people you fought last night tell you that they were from the Celestial Axis?" "Impossible." "How? How is that possible?" Ethan thought for a moment. "They all have a spade tattoo over their hearts, with a snake's eye in the middle." Ethan nodded. "Yeah." Victor's brow furrowed so deeply it formed a canyon between his eyes. His expression was grave. "It really is them. This is too strange." Ethan was puzzled. "What's going on?" After a long, stunned silence, Victor took a deep breath. "That organization should have ceased to exist a long time ago." "Huh? What do you mean?" Victor lit a cigarette and took a slow drag. "The Celestial Axis," he said, his voice heavy, "was a criminal organization in Port Sterling from a long time ago. It's older than I am. They were massive, utterly ruthless. They even had city officials on their payroll. But over 30 years ago, they kidnapped the wife of a wealthy businessman and accidentally killed her. That provoked the businessman's revenge. That businessman, at the time, was a titan in Port Sterling at the absolute peak of his power. After several years of bloody conflict, the Celestial Axis was finally, completely eradicated by him." Hearing this, for some reason, the story felt strangely familiar. Ethan thought for a moment, then his brow tightened. He looked at Victor. "The woman who was kidnapped. Don't tell me she was—" Victor gave a grim smile. "That's right. She was your grandmother. Some people are born in Rome. Others, refusing to be ordinary, can run all the way to Rome on muddy legs." What was the young Theodore Vance like? For words could describe him. Ruthless and iron-fisted. In that era of cutthroat business, you couldn't make it big without being that way. As his business grew, the Vance family established a firm foothold in Port Sterling. Along with the glory, they naturally attracted the attention of criminal forces. Initially, the Celestial Axis wanted to recruit Theodore, and they offered him a high-ranking position. Theodore knew exactly what kind of dirty business they were into. He could overlook some things, but their trafficking of national artifacts overseas was something he found repulsive. He flatly refused their invitation. In truth, the Axis wanted him for the Vance family's wealth, but more importantly, for their control of the city's major shipping terminals. If they could get their hands on those ports, smuggling artifacts, drugs, and other illicit goods would become much easier. After Theodore's clear refusal, the Celestial Axis resorted to coercion. They kidnapped his beloved wife, hoping to blackmail him. But unexpectedly, on the second day of her captivity, she managed to escape. Pursued relentlessly by Axis members, she made the extreme choice to jump into the sea to survive and died in the attempt. Upon learning of his wife's death, Theodore was consumed by a thunderous rage. He quickly launched his counterattack. A military veteran himself, most of the men under him were brothers in arms who had served with him. Their combat effectiveness was formidable. In a single night of slaughter, they eliminated nearly 10 of the Axis's top leaders. And Theodore didn't spare their families. Not the men, not the women, not the old, not the young. Coincidentally, the federal government had just begun a major anti-corruption and anti-gang campaign, sending a special task force into the deeply corrupt city of Port Sterling. Theodore seized the opportunity, using this sword of state to begin his own plan to eradicate the Celestial Axis. According to rumors, after years of investigation, more than 20 officials, big and small, were imprisoned for their ties to the organization. One can only imagine how terrifyingly powerful the Celestial Axis had become, and what kind of backing they had to wreak havoc on the city. After eliminating the Axis, the Vance family solidified its position as the #1 family in Port Sterling. But time is fickle. While the Vances are still #1 on the surface, the hidden families lurking in the shadows are not necessarily afraid of them. They say the times make the hero, but different times make different heroes, each with their own complex backgrounds. On the surface, Port Sterling is calm and stable. In reality, the darkness has just gotten more sophisticated. Hearing Victor recount these stories of his father's past, Ethan felt a mix of emotions. Looks like the old man didn't finish the job back then. Victor's expression was grave. He nodded. Those bastards. I can't believe they've grown into something new, and for all these years, I didn't notice a thing. Our only bet is Gene Marshall, Ethan said, rubbing his chin. I got a name last night, the Vulture, but by the time I got there, he was already dead. But Gene wasn't killed back then. That tells me, as the biggest smuggler in Port Sterling at the time, he must have held a significant position in the Axis. He definitely knows more. I'm betting they'll come to confirm if he's really dead. A fierce look crossed Victor's face. What your grandfather could do back then, I can do now. Why can't these bastards just leave the Vance family alone? Grandmother's death was because the Vances were a tall tree catching the wind. But my mother's death, that was because of a secret she kept. Victor glanced at his son and gently shook his head. Your mother's work was always so mysterious. I never knew what secret she had that was worth dying for. If only she could have foreseen the danger. If only she had told me. The thought of his mother brought a wave of grief to Ethan, and his eyes began to redden. After a long silence, he asked Victor, should we tell the old man that the celestial axis is back? Victor considered it. Let's not. He's old and sick now. He barely has the energy to manage family affairs. Telling him won't do any good. Your mother's revenge is on us, son. I'm afraid the Axis has already bought off a new crop of city officials. It's going to be tough, Ethan sighed. You're already tiptoeing around just one family, the Shaws. Sometimes, you have to know when to be wary. But sometimes, Victor said, I don't have to be. Son, remember this. In any country in the world, there is one universal truth. Power only serves its source. When we deal with power, our caution is a tool for manipulation. But being incautious doesn't always mean we're corner dogs. To be honest, I could extricate myself completely right now and send Caleb Shaw's father to join Everett Yates in prison, making license plates. But it's not worth it. I can still use him, so for now, I'll prop him up. When the day comes that I have to get rid of him, I'll make him see very clearly who's the grandfather and who's the grandson. Ethan's voice turned grim. My way would be to kill him and be done with it. Right now, the priority is dealing with the celestial axis. Who has time to mess around with them? That Caleb Shaw is definitely going to come after me again. It's a given. Victor smiled faintly. Son, power can be manipulated with great effort and ingenuity, but you must never try to stand above it. That's the ultimate taboo. If you kill an official, you'll only invite bigger trouble. A lot of the time, playing the grandson isn't a bad thing. You just have to be methodical, plan ahead, and keep yourself clean. The moment you decide you're done being the grandson, those grandfathers won't even have a chance to kneel. Ethan shook his head with a smile. You old fox. You're just like the old man. Victor chuckled. If he wasn't like this, how would the Vance family be where it is today? How many times have the authorities investigated us over the years? Do they ever find anything? I still have a lot to learn. Otherwise, I wouldn't be letting the first and second branches get so out of hand. Speaking of which, you need to be very careful of Harrison Vance. That kid is much deeper than his father and much harder to deal with. The old man thinks very highly of him right now. He's been quiet ever since I came back to the family, Ethan said. We'll take it one step at a time. The two chatted for a while longer. Ethan stood up to leave. Back in his car, he checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. The bite mark on his lip was still noticeable. He took out the bandage he'd bought earlier, covered up, and then drove off, full of anticipation, to see Isabel. Isabel's sprained ankle was better, but she still couldn't walk properly. Besides, Phoenix Crest Manor made her deeply uncomfortable, so she simply didn't leave her room. When she got bored, she'd watch movies or play chess online or get updates on the company from her assistant, Wendy. She prayed that Ethan would resolve things quickly so she could go back to her own place. She just wondered if that man, with his penchant for extreme action, would handle things peacefully. Isabel felt a pang of worry. She didn't know who Caleb Shaw was, but she could sense his background was powerful. Otherwise, why would he try to have them run off the road over a simple disagreement? What she didn't know was that the people who had hit them were far more dangerous than Caleb Shaw. Isabel picked up her phone, thinking about calling Ethan, when she heard the maid's voice from the hall below. Young Mr. Vance, you've arrived. Yeah, go on with your work. I'm going to see my wife. Then came the sound of hurried footsteps on the stairs. Isabel felt a strange flutter of joy. Why did the thought of seeing that damn man give her such a peculiar feeling? But when Ethan pushed the door open, the joy in her eyes vanished like smoke. What are you doing here? Isabel said, her lips tightening. Shouldn't you be busy with your affairs? I'm here to see my wife, what else? Ethan gave a roguish grin. You're my top priority. Isabel rolled her eyes. Don't call me that. And stop being so cheesy. Then you teach me how not to be cheesy, Ethan said with a smile, extending his hand. Isabel took it. When she tried to pull away, Ethan held on tight. They stayed like that for 5 seconds, until Isabel's gaze started to shift uncomfortably. Only then did he let go. Ethan smiled slyly. Izzy, have you noticed that ever since you kissed me, the duration of our handshakes has increased? Hey, why don't you try kissing me again? I can make the selfless sacrifice, no charge. Isabel suddenly flared up. You shameless bastard. Don't you dare bring that up again. Come on, just one more try. Ethan struck a pose like a villain in a melodrama, rubbing his hands together gleefully. Isabel panicked slightly. Ethan Vance. If you touch me again, I'll bite you. Ethan's eyebrow shot up. Oh, are you a vampire now? Biting people at the drop of a hat. Come on, then. Bite me. I'm Edward Cullen reborn. I need your bite to awaken my powers. Shameless. Edward is way better looking than you. You're like some cheesy, washed-up soap opera star. What kind of taste do you have? That guy has nothing on me, Ethan scoffed. He sat down beside her, his tone suddenly serious. Izzy, why don't you listen to me? Let's find you a really good therapist. What do you say? Isabel was resistant. Zoe is very good. I trust her. Ethan shrugged, not pushing the issue. He glanced at her right foot. How's it feeling today? A bit better. I can walk on it, barely. Just rest up. Don't get out of bed if you don't have to. I got things handled at the company, don't worry. Hearing this, Isabel looked at him intently. I heard you terminated the contracts of a lot of influencers. You didn't keep a single one of the top-tier ones. Nope, Ethan shrugged. They want to make big money, and I wasn't going to stand in their way. Everyone has their own ambitions. But Elysian can't make that kind of money. It would ruin our reputation. Isabel nodded. I support you. She paused, then changed the subject. By the way, what about that Korean friend of yours? Ethan blinked, then quickly understood. Is Dr. Russell asking about him? Isabel thought for a moment, unlocked her phone, opened her chat with Zoe Russell, and handed it to him. Where did that damn man of yours take my appa? I've sent him hundreds of messages, and he's not replying. I told him to come in for treatment, and he's ignoring me. That damn K-pop star, playing hard to get with me. What do I do? Help me think of something. Reading the messages, Ethan couldn't help but smile. He scrolled up and saw a chat log from the previous night between the two friends. Zoe, you've seen Gone Girl, right? Izzy, how can men that twisted even exist? I don't believe in love anymore. Isabel, saw it online a few days ago. Don't panic. You're not rich, you're safe. Zoe, wow, thanks, bestie. Way to twist the knife. I may not be rich, but you little Miss Moneybags need to watch out. Isabel, Ethan's richer than me. I'm not worried. Zoe, you're done for. You subconsciously accepted that playboy. This is a very dangerous state for you to be in. Nearly 2 minutes later, Isabel had replied with a single word. No. After that, they had video called for half an hour. A smile unconsciously spread across Ethan's face. Isabel suddenly sensed something was wrong and snatched her phone back. She glanced at the screen, feigning calmness. She's just talking nonsense. But her heart was hammering against her ribs. Ethan smiled. Then why are you blushing? Isabel trailed off, looking down stubbornly. I'm not. Ethan pressed further. You two talked for half an hour. What did you talk about? Were you analyzing me? Don't be so full of yourself, Isabel said, turning to look out the window, her face averted. I'm not that bored. Ethan's smile widened. He gently took her hand, his voice a seductive whisper. Liar. Izzy, have you really fallen in love with me? Isabel awkwardly pulled her hand away. My condition. It's impossible. Most impossibilities in this world can become possible, Ethan said with a smile. The only impossibility I'm sure of is divorcing you. Sweetheart, you'll never escape my grasp in this lifetime. I'll always hold you forever and ever. Isabel couldn't meet his searing gaze and looked down again. She mumbled, there's nothing that can't be replaced by novelty. Besides, I can't give you anything in return. Ethan, the more you act like this, the more I'll just feel indebted to you. I can't. I really can't. Indebted, Ethan murmured. You can pay me back by giving me 7 or 8 kids. With a physique like this, the kids won't go hungry. We can't let it go to waste. Isabel's brow furrowed. She looked up at Ethan and found him staring shamelessly at her chest. She kicked out at him in annoyance. You pervert. You can't be serious for more than 2 minutes. Ethan grinned wickedly. Calm down, my dear little powder keg. Ha ha. But seriously, for your best friend's sake, I'll help her out. Isabel shot him a furious glare and turned away. I can't be bothered with you. You shameless bastard. In the next second, they both spoke at the same time. Thank you. You're welcome. Back at the Emerald Lake Villa, the guys had just finished lunch. Lily was in the kitchen washing dishes when she heard the door open. She turned around and froze, her eyes wide. Benny was standing there, wearing a suit that was stretched tight across his massive frame, with one of Ethan's expensive ties knotted around his neck like a Boy Scout's neckerchief. His hands are behind his back, his nervous face flushed red. Lily, he stammered, well. Lily snapped out of her shock, tilting her head back to meet his eyes. Benny, where are you going dressed like that? Benny scratched his head, embarrassed. I want to ask you. To a movie. Lily was taken aback. Her mouth fell open slightly, and she shyly looked away, her small, calloused hands fidgeting together. She wasn't stupid. She knew Benny felt something different for her, but she had only ever seen the big man as a brother, never anything more. It wasn't about his appearance or his simpler mind. It was just that someone from her lowly background. How could she dare to dream of something like love? No matter how plain or simple he was still the young master's brother, closer than a blood relative. And her? A wildflower blooming in an abyss, a tool forged in slaughter. They were worlds apart. Getting no response, Benny grew even more anxious. He gritted his teeth, summoned his courage, and held out the movie tickets he'd been hiding behind his back. Transformers 2, he stammered. It's really good. It was hard to find a showing. Lily looked at the 2 tickets clutched in his large hand, her cheeks blushing. After a long moment, she looked up at him. Benny, she said softly, lower your head. Huh. Lily made a downward motion with her hand. Bend down a little. Benny quickly complied. Then, Lily slowly raised her hands, undid his tie, and retied it with delicate, precise movements. This is how you tie a tie. Did you get it? Yeah. Benny nodded vigorously. I got it. Lily couldn't help but giggle. You think you can learn it just by watching once? Benny grinned sheepishly. I'll learn slowly. You can teach me. From now on. Okay. Lily nodded. She looked at the time on the tickets, then said shyly, I have to finish the dishes first. Wait for me. Benny grunted in agreement, standing like a stone statue in the kitchen doorway, a wide, goofy grin on his face. Just then, Jax's voice came from the living room. Nice one, Leo. Go, go. Oh my God, why did you crash? Benny turned to see Jax and Leo playing a VR game. He strode over, grabbed them both by the scruff of their necks, and hauled them toward the kitchen like a pair of stray kittens. Jax ripped off his headset. Damn it. You moron, what's wrong with you? Leo also took off his headset, not daring to get angry or say a word. Benny tossed them into the kitchen. Do the dishes, he growled. A second later, his expression switched back to one of pure, simple-minded joy as he looked at Lily. Lily, let's go. Lily was speechless. Jax was about to retort when he noticed the movie tickets in Benny's hand. He rolled his eyes in resignation, then walked dutifully to the sink. Benny, he muttered, I suggest you rent out the whole theater. Go on, Lily, unleash your inner beast. See what it feels like to be crushed by a mountain. Remember to bring your ID. If you can't, don't bother coming back tonight. Lily's face turned bright red. She stomped her foot in embarrassment. Jax, what are you talking about? Benny just grinned. Hey Jax, you want me to beat the crap out of you? Leo smiled faintly. Though still feeling out of place, he sensed that these men didn't actually reject him. Jax, in particular, seemed to look out for him. Finn, sitting before the bronze panther statue, was oblivious to the commotion, looking for all the world like he was mourning at the wrong grave, his piety unshaken. A moment later, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. I'm sending you a location. Go there. It was a map pin, accompanied by the address of Zoe Russell's clinic. Finn didn't ask questions. He put his phone away, grabbed his jacket, and left. About half an hour later, the killing machine arrived outside Mindshift Wellness. He habitually scanned his surroundings before heading upstairs. Zoe, who had received a message from Isabel half an hour earlier, was ecstatic. She had cleaned the entire clinic from top to bottom and was now bouncing down the hallway with a large trash bag, her steps light and cheerful. As she rounded the corner to the elevator bank, she saw him, the Appa of her dreams, stepping out of the elevator. Zoe's heart fluttered. She was both thrilled and shy. She quickly ducked back around the corner, pressing her back against the wall. She had the face of an angel, but she was grinning like a giddy fool. Finn had been looking down at his phone, reconfirming the suite number, but an operative sixth sense caught the flash of movement in his peripheral vision. He pocketed his phone without changing his pace, his hand instinctively gripping the hilt of his kukri as he moved forward. They were separated by a 90-degree corner, the distance between them shrinking. Zoe, lost in her excitement, or perhaps her brain had short-circuited, heard his footsteps approaching. She made a goofy monster face and then leaped out from the corner with a loud boo. She only got halfway through the boo before Finn's lightning-fast reflexes took over. He had her by the throat, lifted off the ground, and pinned against the wall. In the same instant, the tip of his kukri was inches from her eye. Zoe choked, unable to breathe. The blade was less than a centimeter from her eyeball. For a moment, the beautiful doctor's heart nearly stopped. Of all the people to scare, she had to pick the killing machine. Did she think she had 9 lives? Seeing it was Zoe, Finn froze for a second. With lightning speed, he retracted the blade and set her down. He glanced up at the sign on the wall, Mind Shift Wellness, and finally understood that this wasn't a chance encounter. It was a setup by his boss. If Ethan had told him outright, he would have pretended he never saw the message. Cough, cough. Zoe, her throat raw, bent over, coughing violently. She looked up at Finn, her eyes welling with tears, her expression one of pure terror. Finn, his face a mask, said, "I'm sorry." He then knelt to pick up the scattered trash. Zoe forced herself to calm down, patting her modest chest. "I was just trying to play a joke on you," she said plaintively. Did you have to do that? And anyway, is being Ethan's bodyguard that dangerous? You carry a knife with you." Finn handed her the trash bag, said, "I'm sorry," again, and turned to leave. "Hey," Zoe stomped her foot in frustration. "You just going to leave after bullying me? Are you even a man?" Finn ignored her, standing at the elevator and pressing the down button. "Finn, do you hate me that much? Fine, go." Zoe fumed. "I'm calling your boss right now. I don't want to treat your stupid illness anyway." "Oof. Your boss loves to give spankings, doesn't he? You just wait until you get back. Go on, get out. I never want to see you again." The mention of Ethan was like a hand squeezing his lifeline. He could have ignored the message, but to show up and then leave. That was a serious slight to his boss. Seeing Finn turn and walk back toward her, Zoe instinctively took a step back. What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Treatment," Finn said flatly, striding past her toward the clinic. Zoe stared at his back, pouting. She followed him slowly, muttering to herself. They say when a woman chases a man, there's only a thin veil between them. So why? With me? Is it the Grand Canyon? Does he really have such a low opinion of me? What kind of taste does he have? That damn K-pop star. Finn stopped abruptly and turned his head. "What did you just call me?" Zoe froze. "Appa. Let's go." That afternoon, Ethan reluctantly left Phoenix Crest Manor and drove to the Red Tower. He had arranged a meeting with Sienna Sterling that morning. Perhaps she had given instructions, because the guards at the door didn't bother with the formality of checking his membership card and were extremely respectful. When he arrived at their private room, Sienna was already waiting. Today she wasn't wearing a Chong Sam, but a sexy, bewitching red dress. Her wavy, waterfall-like hair was draped over her back. Her skin was like porcelain, her lips like fire. She was the very picture of seductive charm. Seeing Ethan enter, Sienna immediately stood up, greeting him with a radiant smile. "Big brother Ethan." Ethan's eyes lit up as he saw his old acquaintances change in style. It was a reaction hardwired into a man's programming. Sienna giggled. "Do you like it?" "Not as much as my wife," Ethan said, his tone casual, but his intent deliberate. Sienna shot him a look. "So unromantic. Didn't your wife ask you how you got that bite mark on your lip?" "Oh, I forgot. You two are fake. She has no right to ask." Ethan didn't want to trade barbs. He got straight to the point. "I need to ask you about something." Sienna picked up the teapot, walked around the table to his side, and poured him a cup herself. "I knew it. You never show up unless you want something." "Go on, what is it? Have you ever heard of the celestial axis?" As the words left his mouth, Sienna's delicate hand, holding the teapot, trembled. Her expression was one of shock, which she quickly masked. Ethan glanced up at her. "It seems you have." Sienna didn't answer immediately. She filled the cup, sat down beside him, and asked, "Is your mother's case related to the celestial axis?" Ethan didn't hide it. He nodded. "Yes, I am now 100% certain it is." Sienna took a breath and murmured, "If it's them, getting your revenge won't be so easy." Ethan thought for a moment. The celestial axis. Are they connected to the Red Tower? Sienna shook her head. "I've only heard of them. I don't know much. But I can tell you, the celestial axis is very mysterious and very powerful. Its members are all major players. There are plenty of them in politics and business." Ethan gave a wicked smile. "The owner of the Red Tower is probably one of them, right?" Sienna looked exasperated. Why do you always insist on seeing me as your opponent? I hate that. I can swear to you, the Red Tower has no connection to the celestial axis. To put another way, we keep to our own sides of the river. I'm really curious about your boss. Stop. Ethan, I've warned you before. That question is a death sentence for anyone who asks. Not your father. Not even your grandfather could save you. Why so defensive? Ethan chuckled. Fine, I won't ask. Okay, don't be angry. My mistake. As he spoke, Ethan gently took her hand. Oh, Sienna raised an eyebrow. Did the sun rise in the west today? A certain someone has learned how to coax a girl. Ethan smiled but said nothing. His hands moved up her smooth arms, naturally settling on her shoulders. Then, his fingers hooked the straps of her dress and pulled them down, his eyes full of seductive promise. Sienna was in disbelief. Why would Ethan suddenly start taking off her clothes? She froze for a moment, then a blush crept up her cheeks. She raised her hands, wrapping them around his neck. You want me? She purred. Ethan remained silent, his hands continuing their work. No matter how intelligent a woman is, in the face of her heart's desire, she becomes a fool. Sienna's mind was filled with only one person, Ethan. The boy who had given her a warm hug on that desperate rooftop, the brilliant light that had burst from the darkness and given her the strength to live. She couldn't question this strange turn of events. Her hands naturally slid to his collar, unbuttoning his shirt one by one. Her breath was hot, her voice a sultry whisper. Look at you, so impatient. It's not like I wouldn't give it to you. Her fiery red lips moved closer. But Ethan suddenly raised a hand to block her face. With his other hand, he pulled down her dress and bra, revealing the pale expanse of her chest. He glanced down for only a second, saw no special celestial axis tattoo, and then pushed her away. His brow furrowed as he watched her reaction, his eyes intentionally or unintentionally lingering on her chest. Sienna was pushed back against the chair, momentarily confused. She looked at him quizzically. What's wrong? You just wanted to see my... It was clear she had no idea why he had undressed her, or why he was looking at her chest. This meant she didn't know that members of the celestial axis had a special tattoo there, which meant she hadn't been lying earlier. Or was it, Sienna purred, that you suddenly thought of your fake wife? Hey. She didn't bother to fix her dress. Instead, she raised a slender foot and began rubbing it against his calf, slowly moving upward. Faced with such a temptation, Ethan scooted his chair back, pulled out a cigarette, and looked away. Put your clothes on. His cool tone was like a splash of cold water. Sienna came to her senses, quickly realizing that he had undressed her for another reason. What were you trying to find on me? Ethan sighed. I'm sorry. He offered no explanation. Sienna thought for a moment. Her eyes suddenly filled with hurt and anger. An organization like the Celestial Axis. They usually have a unique symbol. Some organizations even require members to have it tattooed on their bodies. So, the members of the Celestial Axis have a special tattoo, right? You were trying to confirm if I was one of them. Is that it? The truth always hurts. Ethan hadn't expected Sienna to be so sharp. He just smoked his cigarette in silence. The reason he'd come to the Red Tower was because its owner was a mystery, which made it hard not to connect them to the mysterious Celestial Axis. And Sienna's initial reaction had only strengthened his suspicion. As the general manager, she had to be close to the owner. If the owner was an Axis member, then she had to be one too. However, while he still couldn't prove a link between the Red Tower and the Celestial Axis, he was now almost certain that Sienna really did know very little about them. Sienna laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. Ethan felt a pang of guilt, but he didn't want to encourage her feelings for him, so he offered no comfort, just smoked his cigarette in silence. In truth, he was never this crude with women, but her kiss the last time had repulsed him, and besides, he had to verify his suspicions. It was a necessary evil. After a long silence, Sienna wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and her expression quickly returned to its usual seductive charm. She smiled and asked, so tell me, where's the tattoo? What does it look like? And everything else you found out. I'll see if I can dig up any useful information for you. Ethan stubbed out his cigarette in the ashtray. I'm sorry about just now, but don't worry about this. I'll investigate it myself. Afraid of getting me involved? At least you have a conscience. Sienna pouted, then smiled. Don't worry. I'm the general manager of the Red Tower. After all, not just any stray cat can touch me. And I'm not that petty. What happened just now is in the past. Tell me about the Celestial Axis. What if I can help? Ethan hesitated for a moment, then gave her a brief summary. So you only know about the tattoo? Yeah, that's all I have for now. I'm at a loss for how to proceed. Sienna thought for a moment. All right, I'll see what I can do. If I find anything, I'll call you. Ethan nodded. Thanks. If it's too difficult, don't force it. Your safety comes first. With that, he prepared to leave. How will you thank me? Sienna grabbed his hand coquettishly. You menace. You've stirred up all this fire in me, and now you're just going to leave without taking responsibility? Why don't you offer your body as a down payment? Heh. Ethan shook her hand off, his tone cool. Sienna, the way you're acting right now. It disgusts me. A bitter look filled her eyes. The old Sienna is dead. Perhaps. The only place she's still alive is in your eyes. If you want, I can be. It's impossible between us. I'm married. Goodbye. Ethan didn't give her the chance to finish, turning and walking out of the room. And what if you weren't married? Sienna called out to his retreating back, her voice tinged with a smile. The answer came back, still impossible. The moment the door closed, the beautiful woman crumpled, sliding helplessly down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. She wrapped her arms around herself, the last of her carefully constructed strength shattering. She began to sob like a heartbroken teenager. The old Sienna was dead. The one who lived was Sienna Sterling. And in this world, only one person could shatter Sienna Sterling's heart. Just because I love you, you think you can humiliate me? That you can completely disregard my feelings? Why did I have to fall for you? Why have I been in love with you for all these years? Ethan Vance, I hate you so much, but I also love you so much. After a while, her phone, lying on the table, began to ring. Sienna composed herself, stood up, and answered it. It was Caleb Shaw. What is it? She said, her voice dripping with disgust. Caleb, Sienna, I haven't seen you in a few days. Are you okay? Get to the point. Caleb sighed. That old bastard beat me pretty bad. I'm still in the hospital. I should be out in a day or two. I'll come see you then. What do you want as a gift? Sienna laughed coldly. What's that supposed to mean? You want me to come visit you in hospital? Heh, Caleb, you're a psycho. You deserve to get beaten by your father. Sienna, don't piss me off. I'm in a really bad mood. Not my problem. Enjoy your recovery. And don't call me unless you have a reason. Love, it seemed, was the ultimate chain of command, the cause and effect of one person conquering another. Back at the Emerald Lake Villa, the sudden quietness of the house felt strange to Ethan. He didn't see Benny or Lily on the first floor, so he went upstairs. Jax and Leo weren't there either. Puzzled, Ethan came back downstairs. He was just about to call Benny when he heard Jax's voice coming from the storage room. Damn it, if I'd known the Celestial Axis was this tough, I would have bought more gear last time. Leo, you'll have to make do with these 2 rifles for now. When the boss gets back, I'll ask him if we should buy more. Boss, you're back. Jax stepped out of the storage room and saw Ethan standing at the foot of the stairs. Ethan nodded with a smile and walked over to the sofa. He sat down and asked Leo, what kind of rifle are you used to? Leo answered hesitantly, you all use M16s, so I'll use that. To be honest, overseas, I always used an AK. Compared to you guys, I'm a total country bumpkin who's never seen the world. AKs are good, cheap and reliable, just a little less accurate. Ethan said, then looked at Jax. You make the call. Buy more gear. I didn't realize how deep this rabbit hole went. This Celestial Axis is probably going to cost us a lot of ammo. Right? Jax nodded. I was just talking to our supplier at lunch. They have a lot of stuff in stock, and they got their hands on an M200. Brand new. That's the Reaper, the king of long-range sniper rifles. You always dreamed of having one, right? I remember a few years ago, it was going for $450 grand. They're only asking $500 now. That's a steal. Ethan didn't hesitate. Buy it. It's time Lily got some better hardware. With her skills, she deserves that rifle. Speaking of which, where is she? And where's Benny? Jax grinned. That big lug took Lily to the movies. Oh, Ethan was surprised. Has our Benny finally figured things out? Jax shrugged. He's figured out how to be an idiot. He took her to see Transformers. Ethan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That dope. Does he think Autobots can have kids? And you didn't help him? He was plotting his big move in secret. I had no idea. Oh, and he swiped one of your ties. Ethan shook his head with a smile. I'll buy him a few when I have time. He paused, then picked up his bag, took out $30,000, and tossed it to Leo. You're not busy now. Go buy yourself some new clothes. Leo stared at the cash, stunned. He was about to speak when Ethan cut him off. Stop. Don't be a grandma about it. I give you money, you spend it. We're brothers. If you get all polite on me, I'm going to get pissed. The car keys are on the shoe rack. Go on, get going. In a couple of days, things will get busy, and you won't have this kind of free time. Leo couldn't refuse. He gave Ethan a grateful look, grabbed the keys, and left. The 2 brothers stood by the window, watching the Hummer drive away, the same faint, knowing smile on both their faces. Boss, Jack said, think the fish will bite. The bait is out, Ethan replied. It will at least come for a sniff. At Mindshift Wellness, Finn's therapy session had ended. Zoe Russell looked at the handsome face that had remained completely impassive from start to finish, and she felt herself on the verge of depression. Are you secret agents, just beyond the pale of normal human existence? Can you please let your guard down and cooperate with me? Finn looked at her earnestly. I was very cooperative. You're the one who can't do it. Zoe slumped in defeat. With an attitude like that, not even a god could help you. As a top-tier operative, his psychological defenses weren't going to be breached that easily. From now on, I don't need any more treatment, Finn said, standing up to leave. I've seen several top psychologists overseas. None of them had any effect. Let's just leave it. I'm incurable. Zoe stood up too, spreading her arms to block his path. She looked a little sheepish. Oh, who said you're incurable? The conventional methods might not work, but I have one more idea. It might just work. Finn blinked, not holding out much hope. What is it? He asked dismissively. More contact and communication with others. Preferably, find someone you like, and try dating. Finn froze. A psychologist in Mexico, one Ethan had found for him, had said the same thing. Find a partner you like, live a quiet, normal life together, and it would greatly help his condition. Later, at his mother's insistence, he had tried, but that hope had been buried in the ground, and his condition had only gotten worse. Zoe's pale face began to blush. She looked down, her voice muffled. If you don't have anyone you like yet, I can help you. We could pretend to be a couple and see if... Before she could finish, Finn cut her off. You like me? Zoe was both shy and flustered. She glanced up at his face, her hands clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. What do you live for? Finn asked, a seemingly random question. Zoe was confused, looking at him quizzically. I only live for today, Finn said calmly. Because there's a chance I won't wake up tomorrow. You people have hope. For me, just seeing the sunrise every day is a gift from God. He pointed to his head. There's a bullet in here. It can't be removed. It could kill me at any time. Don't waste your time on me. Zoe was too shocked to speak. After a moment, her brow furrowed. Finn, I know you don't like me, but you don't have to make up some story cursing yourself. And don't worry, I don't like you either. I just want to treat your illness. You don't have anyone you like right now, and I happen to be your psychologist. By pretending to be a couple, I can monitor your condition at all times. Understand? Finn deadpanned. How can you treat me if we're just pretending? Then let's make it real. I'll go all in, all right? Even if what you said is true, and you're gonna die tomorrow, then just go die. I'm still young. If you die, I'll find someone else. Sheba, crazy woman. Finn pushed past her and strode toward the door. Hey, you have to come back for treatment next week. You hear me? Finn paused briefly, but didn't respond. As he stepped out the door, Zoe's voice called after him, cracking with emotion. Finn, is it true? You could really die any time. Finn turned back. Zoe was standing by the window, the golden afternoon sun illuminating her face, her eyes burning like the clouds at sunset. For a fleeting moment, a complex emotion flickered in Finn's eyes. He opened his mouth, then closed it without a word and left. A heartless killing machine couldn't understand why this woman he had just met would have tears in her eyes for him. He got into the elevator. Just as the doors were about to close, a hand shot into the gap, forcing them open. Zoe sniffled, her head down as she stepped inside. Hey, can you buy me dinner? If not, I'll buy you dinner. Finn glanced at this human barnacle, took a shallow breath, and ignored her. The elevator descended. Zoe hung her head, awkwardly picking at her fingers. Forget it, she stammered. I just wanted to walk you out. I'll go eat by myself later. Finn, live well. Get treatment. Can you eat Korean food? Zoe slowly raised her head, her big eyes staring blankly at Finn, as if she couldn't believe those words had come from him. After a stunned moment, she nodded repeatedly. I can eat anything. I eat a lot. Don't you worry about your wallet. I'll treat you next time. Evening, at the Emerald Lake Villa, Ethan was on the phone with Milo, discussing the celestial axis. Leo walked in, laden with shopping bags. Jax, who had been lying on the sofa diligently studying a Chinese-made easy book, sat up and exchanged a look with Ethan. Leo walked from the entrance to the living room. Seeing Ethan on the phone, he just nodded a greeting. All right, Milo, let's leave it there for now. I've got something here. I'll call you back. Ethan hung up and smiled at Leo. You're back. Yeah, Leo said with a sheepish grin. I bought 3 outfits. There's still a lot of money left. He started to hand the cash back to Ethan. Ethan waved it away. Keep it. Buy cigarettes. When you run out, just tell me. Don't be a stranger, right? Leo didn't protest further, putting the money away. Just then, Jax abruptly asked Ethan, "Is Milo still watching Go?" He was cut off by a warning look from Ethan. Jax immediately shut his mouth. Leo wasn't stupid. The name Jax had almost said had to be Gene Marshall. So, Gene was currently with the never-seen number 2? It was clear Ethan still didn't fully trust him. But that was to be expected. He had, after all, just joined. Boss, I'm gonna head to my room," Leo said, breaking the awkward silence with a smile. Ethan smiled back. "Sure, go rest up if you're tired." As he finished speaking, Ethan's phone rang. It was Kimberly Frost. Ethan paused for a second. Then, as if by reflex, he glanced up at Leo. It was a deliberate move. He took the phone and walked upstairs. The gesture undoubtedly made Leo feel even more alienated. He retreated sullenly to his room. Upstairs, Ethan answered the call. "What's up, Kimberly, Mr. Vance, I." Hearing her stammer, as if she had something difficult to say, Ethan asked directly, "What happened? Did that old bastard Ron Wallace give you trouble?" No, Kimberly said quickly. "Director Wallace has been very good to me." I. Ethan was growing impatient. "What is it? Don't hem and haw. Just tell me." Kimberly was silent for a long moment, then took a breath. It's nothing. Ms. Thorne said she couldn't make it to this week's taping and told me to contact you directly." "Isn't it on Friday?" Ethan said. "That's still a few days away." "Don't worry, I'll be there." "Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vance." Ethan had a feeling Kimberly had called for another reason. "What did you really want to talk to me about?" he asked again. "Is someone giving you trouble? You can tell me. I won't ignore it." Kimberly hesitated. "It's nothing. You're sure?" Yes, it's really nothing. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Vance. I'll let you get back to your work. I won't bother you anymore." After hanging up, Ethan still felt suspicious. But with the celestial axis already weighing heavily on his mind, he didn't dwell on it. The Port Sterling Oncology Center. Kimberly Frost sat on a bench in the hallway. Clutching the phone she'd just hung up. The name Mr. Vance glowed on the screen. She bit her lip so hard she could taste blood, her eyes a swirling mix of undisguised shame and a bitter dose of regret. She should have just asked. Between her classes, the reality show, and her new role on set, she was being run ragged. It was inevitable that she'd be less attentive to her paralyzed father. 2 nights ago, she'd come home from the film set to her small rental apartment and found him slumped over the side of his bed, vomiting blood. A sickening pool of it, mixed with stomach bile, had already formed on the floor. Panic had seized her. She called an ambulance, and, after a battery of tests, the diagnosis came back. Stomach cancer, stage 2. It was treatable, but the estimated cost was staggering, between $40,000 and $50,000. When Ethan Vance had taken over Elysian Media, he'd instituted a new benefit. The company would reimburse 60% of major medical expenses for an employee's immediate family. So far, no one had needed to use it. Kimberly knew Mr. Vance was a man of his word. But even with the company covering 60%, the remaining balance was an impossible sum for her. Her part in Ron Wallace's film was minor, a role she'd only gotten because of Ethan's influence. The pay was a paltry $3,000. It felt like a fortune to her, and the opportunity itself was priceless, but that money had been completely wiped out by the initial tests and hospital admission fees. The reality show, Hollywood Hopefuls, was meant to get her face out there, to build a name for herself. People would kill and pay for a spot she'd earned. But the show only paid $1,000 an episode, a token gesture of goodwill from the producers to Elysian Media. And even from that, she had to pay the supporting actors Isabel had sent to help her. She couldn't be stingy and pretend she didn't have to. That's not how you survived in a company. So, after everything, she was left with about $300 per episode. It was more than enough for rent and food, but against a mountain of medical bills, it was a single drop in a vast ocean. She was out of options. That's why she called Ethan, to swallow her pride and ask for a loan to cover the remaining 40%. But when the moment came, the words caught in her throat. Since she'd signed with Elysian, Isabel had been a constant source of support, and Ethan had shown her nothing but favor, even getting into a conflict with a famous director for her sake. They were more than just mentors who had discovered her. You had to know your place. She hadn't brought a single dollar of value to the company yet, but she kept causing them trouble. It wasn't about pride or dignity. It just wasn't right. "I'll ask the company to advance the 60% first," she reasoned, her brow furrowed in worry. "Mr. Vance will definitely agree to that. It should be enough to start the treatment. The rest is for targeted therapy drugs, which can wait. I'll try to figure something out. If I really can't find the money when the time comes, then I'll have to ask him for the loan." She silently cursed her fate. Hadn't her father suffered enough? And why couldn't she have just a little more time? She was working hard. With Elysian's resources, it was only a matter of years before she became a star. Then $40,000 would be nothing. Even $400,000 wouldn't be a problem. As she wallowed in self-pity, a cheerful voice broke through her thoughts. Kimberly. She looked up to see a classmate and quickly stood, forcing a weak smile. Jessica, what are you doing here? The girl, Jessica, smiled and handed her an envelope. You told the professor your dad was in the hospital, so he organized a fundraiser in class. Here, it's $1,200 total. The professor put in $300 himself, and the rest is from all of us. Take it. What? This is too much. Kimberly was flustered. They were all just students. This amount was incredibly generous. Jessica pushed the envelope into her hand. Just take it. I came all this way to give it to you. Don't make me go back empty-handed. Kimberly thanked her profusely. After they chatted for a moment, Jessica learned about the $40,000 estimate. She clicked her tongue in sympathy, then said, almost as an afterthought, how is a girl like you supposed to come up with that much money? I know a way to make cash fast, but forget it. Kimberly froze. What? What way? Jessica put on a troubled expression. After a pause, she leaned in and whispered, Kimberly, my family isn't well off either, but you see me. My clothes, my bag, they're all designer. This purse? $7,000. Don't laugh, but I work part-time at a private club. Basically, I'm a hostess. I just sing and have drinks with clients. You can make a few hundred a night. Don't get the wrong idea. It's just hosting. Not, selling yourself. Kimberly frowned and slowly lowered her head, saying nothing. Jessica sighed softly. Look, I'm just trying to get the life I want. It's not like I'm a prostitute. Who cares what other people think? We'll all go our separate ways after graduation anyway. No one will even remember. My conscience is clear. You. She glanced toward the hospital room and sighed again. Forget it. Maybe you should ask the professor if you can apply for some kind of grant from the university. But don't get your hopes up. The school is for educating people, not a charity. Kimberly was still looking down, her fingers creasing the envelope. Seeing this, a sly glint appeared in Jessica's eyes. Well, I should get back and tell them you got the money. Kimberly, take care of your dad. She turned to leave, but Kimberly suddenly called out. Is it true what you said? You can make that much money just by pouring drinks. Jessica turned back, tilting her head. A wide, predatory smile spread across her pretty face. How many innocent, naive college girls have been ruined by girls just like her? 10 minutes later, Jessica walked out of the hospital and immediately made a call. Hey, baby, miss me? Of course, a lazy voice on the other end yawned. But aren't you supposed to be in class? Did you handle that thing I asked you about? Just did. She's pure but sexy, and she's a little actress who's been on TV. Oh, send me a picture. Oomph. Jessica whined coquettishly. You said it was for a friend, but I'm starting to think you're tired of me and looking for someone new for yourself. The man chuckled. Never. You're the only one for me. Okay, truth is, a friend of mine got a beat down from his old man a little while ago. It was pretty bad. He's still in the hospital. I need a favor from him, so I wanted to treat him to something special. You have no idea how picky this guy is. He won't even look at common trash. Perfect timing. He gets out tomorrow. I'll send you the location tonight. You bring the girl. Meanwhile, after hanging up with Kimberly, Ethan Vance noticed the sky darkening. He sent a text to Benny, telling him to come home early. As powerful as the celestial axis was, they wouldn't dare make a move in broad daylight. But at night, the ghouls and goblins came out of play. Besides, he had already cast his bait that afternoon, sending Leo Nash out alone to buy clothes, giving the celestial axis a perfect opportunity to make contact. In truth, Ethan's plan had begun the day at Summit View Estates, when Jax had deliberately left 2 of the security cameras active. Those cameras were protected by a hidden password. By not disabling them, Jax made it seem like he'd missed them. Ethan had then purposefully led Leo into the camera's line of sight, allowing the celestial axis to see with their own eyes that he had not only kept Leo by his side, but had also given him a gun without hesitation. Proof that Leo had earned his trust, whether they believed it or not, and whether Leo was genuinely loyal or just a brainwashed fanatic trying to get back in their good graces. The celestial axis would undoubtedly try to use him as a pawn. His team's skills were now known. The axis couldn't risk a simple assassination attempt, especially not in a wealthy enclave like Emerald Lake Estates. Sending a few killers would be a fool's errand against his men. But using overwhelming numbers and firepower would risk a massive shootout, which would attract more than just the local detectives. It could escalate to a federal anti-terror response. The celestial axis wasn't stupid enough to dig its own grave. So, Using Leo, whether to assassinate Ethan or to locate where Jean Marshall was being held, was their best move. As for how they would use him, that was their problem. Filthy people had filthy methods. Even if Leo now genuinely hated the Celestial Axis, they had ways of making him obey. Ethan's deliberately suspicious attitude toward Leo was also part of the plan. It was meant to make Leo feel off balance, to make him think Ethan was keeping him around primarily because his past connection to the Axis might prove useful. In other words, even if Leo truly wanted to join them, Ethan was prepared to push him right back into the enemy's arms. Brotherhood? The word carried the weight of 1,000 pounds. It wasn't something you handed out lightly. To gain the upper hand, he had to make full use of his bait. Otherwise, with the Axis lurking in the shadows, they would always be vulnerable. Hopefully, Leo had already met with them today. After texting Benny, Ethan thought for a moment but decided not to warn Finn. That man's vigilance and combat prowess were top tier, even more honed than his own. He didn't need anyone worrying about him. Years ago, when Ethan's own marksmanship had hit a plateau, it was Finn's guidance that had pushed him to the next level. Hand-to-hand combat was another story. Ethan, who had always preferred books to brawls, was no match for Finn's raw skill. Among the brothers, in a fight with no guns or knives, only Benny's sheer size and brute force could teach Finn some manners. All the flashy techniques and so-called skills were worthless in the face of absolute power. Otherwise, why would fighting competitions have weight classes? Ethan went back to his room, mapping out his next steps. He had just leaned back against the headboard and plugged in his phone when Milo called. "Boss, this Celestial Axis. None of my contacts have ever heard of them." "I know. Don't worry about it. I think I'm about to make some progress on my end." Milo grunted in agreement, then fell silent for a moment before saying, "Since we know who we're dealing with, do I still need to stick around and watch him? I want to be with you guys." Ethan took a breath. "Just hang in there a little longer. You were the first to come back. Don't throw away years of hard work. Staying by his side might still be useful." "The Celestial Axis is no joke," Milo pressed. "There are 4 of you. No, 5, counting that girl. How are you going to handle them?" "It's fine," Ethan said with a small smile. "Mexico was a hell of a lot worse, and we made it through, didn't we? Trust me, stay where you are for now. Once this is all over, we're all leaving the country. I never told you guys, but before I came back, I bought an island. It's huge, still being developed. When this is done, we'll have all the time in the world to relax together." "Yeah, okay, I'll listen to you," Milo said, hanging up reluctantly. An hour later, Benny and Lily returned to the villa. Finn arrived shortly after. Ethan came downstairs and gathered everyone, using the pretense of welcoming Leo to the team. He broke out several bottles of high-end bourbon, a rare occasion, and spent the evening drinking and laughing with his men. He could hold his liquor, but he wasn't a drinker. The last time he drunk for no reason, he'd set a trap that had destroyed Ruby. This time, who was the target? Even Benny could guess something was up. The hours ticked by. Before 11, Ethan was swaying on his feet, thoroughly drunk. Jax had to help him upstairs. The others dispersed to their rooms. Lily, who hadn't been drinking, cleared the table alone. She knew the young master was likely planning something for tonight, but he put away half a bottle of bourbon himself. He looked genuinely drunk. Would it affect his plans? It wasn't until she picked up the towel Ethan had been using to wipe his mouth that she realized. It was sopping wet, heavy enough to wring out, and the bottle of mineral water by his feet, which had been nearly empty earlier, was now almost full. She understood. Of that half bottle of bourbon, at least a third of it had been poured into the towel and the water bottle. Upstairs, Ethan was a different man. He and Jax were glued to the surveillance monitors, watching the area around the villa. By repeatedly showing weakness, he was daring the Celestial Axis to make a move, or for Leo to act. But the night passed in absolute silence. As dawn broke, Jax pouted. "The fish didn't bite? Damn it. What's their game? They should be getting desperate by now. You think maybe Leo really does want to join us? He was careful when he went out yesterday. Maybe they didn't spot him." Ethan considered this for a moment, his voice low. "Fishing requires patience. We wait. Today, we'll cast the line again. I refuse to believe it won't bite." In truth, by creating a vulnerability last night, Ethan had hoped to replicate the success of his plan at the abandoned factory. If not for that one stray gunman who'd escaped, he would have captured the Vulture, a much more valuable prize than Leo. This time, on his home turf, with the perimeter blanketed in Jax's cameras, he was ready. If the Axis sent killers, he would jam their signals and trap them like rats in a cage. No one would escape. Then he would impersonate the captured assassins, feed false intel up the chain, and follow the thread back to its source. But it seemed he was being too impatient. Still, as Jax had said, The celestial axis had to be the more anxious party. Every day Jean Marshall remained alive was another sleepless night for them. Sooner or later, their chance would come. He'd actually drunk a fair bit of bourbon, and after pulling an all-nighter, Ethan's head was pounding. His eyes were shot with blood. There was no way he could go to the office and put on a show for Isabel. He sent a quick text to Wendy, telling her he'd be in that afternoon and that no department heads were to bother him. Then he switched his phone to silent and crashed. He slept until noon. After a quick shower, Ethan ambled downstairs. The weather was unusually pleasant. In the yard, Benny and Leo were washing a car. Finn was in his usual spot, paying his respects to the panther statue. Jax, a master of the all-nighter, had gotten by on 2 hours of sleep and was already out buying parts for a new computer. Ethan stretched, lit 3 sticks of incense for the panther, then brewed a cup of tea and carried it into the kitchen. Lily was busy preparing lunch. She turned and smiled when she saw him. "Young mister. Ethan, you're awake." "Yeah," he said with a matching smile, leaning against the refrigerator. "What's for lunch?" "Celery and beef stir-fry, tomato and egg soup, mapo tofu, poached fish in chili oil, and a seaweed and pork rib soup." "Are you hungry?" "It'll be ready in a minute." "No rush. Take your time." Ethan's eyebrow twitched. "Having you here is a real blessing for us guys." He paused, then added, "And an even bigger blessing for that big dummy." Lily immediately looked down. "Mr. Ethan." Ethan brought the teacup to his lips, blew on it gently, and took a small sip, speaking casually. "Did you enjoy the movie yesterday?" Lily just hummed in response. "You know, that was the first time my fool of a brother has ever taken a girl to the movies." Ethan chuckled, then changed the subject. "Hey, kid, give me a straight answer. What do you think of Benny?" Lily's cheeks flushed a deep red, a mix of shyness and embarrassment. "Benny, he's a good man. He takes good care of me. I've always seen him as a big brother." "You think he's ugly?" No, that's not it. Too big, a little dense." Ethan pressed. Lily shook her head like a drum. "No, I wouldn't dare think that." The word dare caught Ethan's ear. "What do you mean, dare?" "Kid, you've been part of this family for a long time. I'm your family now. Don't think my father-in-law is getting you back when he gets out of prison. And I'm not giving his daughter back either. Once you're on my pirate ship, no one gets to leave. You might as well get used to being a pirate with me." Lily looked up at Ethan, her eyes slightly moist. Ethan smiled gently. "So, no more talk about what you dare or don't dare to do. If he bullies you, I'll help you beat him up. And hey, if you two really hit it off, then I won't be his big brother anymore. I'll be his brother-in-law." Lily, unsure how to respond, just picked at her fingers. Ethan, seeing he'd made his point, sauntered out of the kitchen. Matters of the heart required a certain kind of intuition. Out in the yard, Ethan smacked the clueless Benny on the back of the head. "You took her to see Transformers? What were you thinking?" Benny grinned sheepishly. "Yeah, I think I messed up. I heard there's a new movie that's really popular, something called Gone Girl. I'll take her to see that in a couple of days." Ethan stared at him, speechless. "Can't you just take her to an amusement park? I bet she's never been to a place like that. Or a candlelit dinner. Or set off some fireworks. Rent a yacht and take her out on the water. Hell, just buy one. All my money is with you. You're supposed to spend it. If you really don't know how, go ask Jax. That spendthrift knows how to burn through cash." Benny nodded eagerly, muttering his brother's suggestions under his breath. "Amusement park. Fireworks. Buy a yacht. Sweet Jesus. How much is that going to cost?" Shaking his head at the big dummy, Ethan turned to Leo, who was standing by with an amused grin. "Number 6, you drank too much last night?" Leo chuckled. "A little. Boss, you can really hold your liquor." "Not really. I was completely wasted." Ethan took a sip of tea, then paused. "By the way, 6, I need you to do something for me." Leo's smile vanished. "Anything, boss. Just say the word." "I ordered a new car, and it's being customized at a shop," Ethan said. "Go keep an eye on them for me. Make sure they speed things up and don't cut corners. And more importantly, make sure they don't swap out the original parts one bought for some of their secondhand junk." Leo nodded. "Okay, I'll go change and head out." Once Leo was inside, Benny scratched his head. "Boss, what's the point of keeping him around? I thought you were going to take care of him last night." A faint, wicked smile played on Ethan's lips. "If he's not dead by the end of today, he'll be very useful." "Oh, so, what does that mean?" Benny asked, completely lost. If he dangled the bait for 2 days straight, how could the celestial axis not notice? There were only 2 possible outcomes. Leo would either be killed or he'd continue working for them, and the latter seemed far more likely. Ethan didn't bother explaining. Instead, he asked, "The other GTR I had you commission, is it almost done?" Benny nodded. "Almost. I just called this morning. The bodywork is finished, and the reinforced glass just arrived. It should be done by tomorrow at the latest." "Boss, if we armor the GTR like that, will it still be fast? It doesn't need to be fast, Ethan said. Just remember, don't let Leo know this car exists. Right? It's not even at the same shop. How would he find out? At 8 o'clock that evening, Kimberly Frost sat in the hospital, staring at the itemized bill the doctor had just handed her. Her stomach was in knots. She needed to call Ethan and explain to see if the company could advance the funds. A text would be rude, but she didn't know how to start the conversation on the phone. After a few deep breaths, she rehearsed her lines in her head and, summoning all her courage, made the call. But Ethan was in his study reading. His phone was charging in the bedroom, still on silent from that morning. Kimberly called twice, but both went unanswered. He must be busy, she thought, and decided not to call again. He would see the missed calls and get back to her when he was free. Just then, her phone rang. It was her classmate, Jessica. Kimberly's face fell. Her father was awake, so she quietly stepped out of the room, closing the door before answering. Half a minute later, she returned to the room, her expression even bleaker than before. Her father saw her face and closed his eyes in defeat. "Kimberly, did you borrow money from your company?" he said, his voice thick with the shame of being a burden. "Just listen to me. Let's not do the surgery. I'm a cripple. I'm better off dead than alive." "Dad, what are you saying?" Kimberly scolded. "Don't you ever say that again. Honey, I'm dragging you down. Don't you dare borrow money from them. Your career is just starting to take off because of him. We can't keep causing him trouble. He'll start to think you're the trouble, and that's not good for you." Kimberly fought back tears, her voice choked. "Dad, don't worry, I won't borrow from him. I have to go to shoot now. You get some rest, and don't think such crazy things." Half an hour later, Kimberly arrived at the address Jessica had sent her, a high-end private club. Jessica was standing downstairs, a slim cigarette dangling from her lips, waiting anxiously, as if afraid Kimberly might back out. When she saw Kimberly arrive, Jessica's face broke into a relieved smile. "Kimberly, hurry. The client has been waiting forever. Listen, the guy tonight is a major whale. If you make him happy, we're not talking a few hundred. We could be talking thousands. Easy." Kimberly was incredulous. That much? Hey, look at me. I'm covered in designer brands. Would I lie to you? The people who come to a place like this are all big shots. One time, I just lit a cigarette for a CEO, and he tipped me $2,000 on the spot." Kimberly swallowed hard, her eyes drifting up to the club's gaudy, flashing lights. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Jessica, is it really just pouring drinks?" Jessica's patience was wearing thin. "If you don't trust me, then go home. I'll find someone else. Girls would kill to spend time with a client like tonight's. I only gave you the chance because I know you need the money. Fine, just don't regret it later." She made a show of turning to leave. Kimberly bit her lip and grabbed Jessica's arm. "Of course I trust you. But, Jessica, you have to promise me. If he tries anything, I'm leaving. And you can't be mad at me." Jessica rolled her eyes. Fine. I told you it's just drinks. Why are you so uptight? Let's go." The client's getting impatient. They went upstairs and pushed open the door to a private room. It was surprisingly quiet. Kimberly peeked out from behind Jessica, her eyes timidly scanning the room. The huge suite had only 3 young men sitting on the sofa. The one on the far left put a finger to his lips, shushing them. The one on the right beckoned him inside. In the middle sat Caleb Shaw, fresh from his recovery, talking on the phone. The moment Kimberly saw him, she felt a jolt of familiarity. Before she could place him, Jessica pulled her into the room, pressing a finger to her own lips to signal for silence. "Sienna, you're really pissing me off. Stop using that old bastard to pressure me." "Huh, I'm telling you, sooner or later, you will be mine." Caleb ended the call and tossed his phone onto the sofa. He forced down his anger and chugged his drink. It was then that Kimberly remembered. A few weeks ago, she'd seen a local news story. At a charity gala, Mr. Vance had been provoked by this very man. But when she tried to look up the story later, every article about it had vanished from the internet. As she was thinking, Jessica grabbed her hand and led her toward Caleb. "Mr. Shaw, this is my classmate, Kimberly Frost. Kimberly, say hello to Mr. Shaw." Kimberly, having never been in a place like this, was completely out of her element. She bowed awkwardly. "Hello, Mr. Shaw." Caleb glanced up at her, then leaned back on the sofa and lit a cigarette. His eyes roamed shamelessly over her exceptional figure, a playful, predatory look growing in them. Jessica, an expert at reading the room, saw that Caleb was pleased. She smiled fawningly. "Mr. Shaw, this is Kimberly's first time. She's a complete rookie. Kimberly, go sit next to Mr. Shaw." Anxious and uneasy, Kimberly gingerly sat down beside him. Caleb turned his head to look at the pure-faced beauty, his eyes glinting. He casually placed one hand on her thigh and wrapped the other around her waist. Kimberly jumped as if electrocuted, instinctively inching away. But then, gritting her teeth, she forced herself to sit back, managing a strained smile. "I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw." Jessica clicked her tongue. "Kimberly, what's gotten into you?" It's fine," Caleb interrupted. "I like them this way." "Heh." He smirked, pulled several thick wads of cash from his bag, and tossed them onto the table. "I'm in a bad mood tonight," he said to Kimberly. "Make me happy, and this is all yours." Kimberly stared at the money as if it were a tangible beacon of hope. A light flickered in her eyes. Jessica glanced at the man on the far right, then looked back at her own boyfriend with a flirty smile. "Honey, I'll go pick out another one for your friend. Wait for me." But before she could leave, Caleb stopped her. "No need. You go sing. It's too quiet in here." He then glanced at Jessica's boyfriend, said nothing, and simply poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to Kimberly. Soon, Jessica's singing filled the room. Kimberly occasionally took a sip of wine with Caleb. Thankfully, the other 2 men only had one drink with her and didn't bother her again. Drinking with just Caleb wasn't so bad. She could actually hold her liquor quite well. Otherwise, she never would have agreed to come here. But 5 minutes after she drank the glass Jessica's boyfriend had given her, her head suddenly began to spin. She, who could normally drink half a case of beer before feeling a buzz, felt her entire body go weak. She slumped against Caleb. He looked down at her, a sinister smile touching his lips. "Drunk already?" Kimberly opened her mouth, but she didn't even have the strength to speak. Her eyes were hazy slits. Through them, she saw Caleb's face contort into a lewd, triumphant grin. A wave of pure despair washed over her. She'd been drugged. It wasn't hard to figure out that the drink from Jessica's boyfriend had been spiked, nor was it hard to imagine what was about to happen. "Jessica! Jessica!" She tried to scream, but the words were trapped in her throat. Caleb let out a series of sick, low laughs. He leaned close to her ear, his voice a mocking whisper. "Be a good girl, show me a good time, and all that money will be yours in a little while. Hey. With that, the inhuman monster pushed her onto the coffee table. He looked at his 2 friends, a wicked grin on his face. "I'll go first." Their faces were the same, filthy smiles. They both took out their phones and opened their camera apps. They were practiced, having done this very thing a decade before. Despair was a black shroud over Kimberly's heart. Her eyelids fluttered. She wanted to struggle, but she had no strength. She could only lie there as Caleb undid the buttons of her shirt, one by one, tears streaming from the corners of her eyes. Jessica held the microphone, completely absorbed in her song, not even glancing at the table. In her other hand, she held her phone, displaying her recent text with her boyfriend. "Jessica, you're not gonna. With her, are you?" "I'll be mad. Boyfriend, I have to, or Caleb will be pissed." "Be good. I'll buy you a new bag tomorrow." "Jessica, just this once." "Oof. I want that Coach bag I saw." On the sofa, Kimberly's phone, tucked inside her purse, vibrated incessantly, the sound completely swallowed by the blaring music. After calling Kimberly twice with no answer, Ethan felt a nagging unease. Her tone on the phone yesterday had been off. He thought for a moment, then called her agent. "Hello, Mr. Vance. Has something happened with Kimberly recently? I think her dad's sick. I've been busy with some of the new talent, so I haven't had a chance to ask for details. She just had me clear a leave of absence with Director Wallace." "Don't worry, Mr. Vance, it's just for 2 days. It won't affect the schedule. Find out what's going on. If it's a major illness, contact the admin department directly. Get reimbursed. You don't need my signature." "Understood, Mr. Vance." After hanging up, Ethan sent Kimberly a text. "If you need help, just ask. Don't be weird about it." He then transferred $5,000 to her account. To him, it was less than pocket change, but for a minor illness, it would be more than enough. He remembered Isabel telling him how hard Kimberly's life was, juggling school, part-time acting, and caring for her paralyzed father. An hour later, in the club's private room, Kimberly weakly pulled on her clothes, a sharp, stinging pain radiating from a fresh cigarette burn on her chest. Movies always portrayed rich heiresses as naive, sheltered sweethearts. But in reality, those young women saw far more of society's darkness than any ordinary girl. Kimberly was the opposite. She knew how to haggle at a street market, knew the price of bread and milk. She was too intimidated to even enter a slightly upscale noodle shop, let alone a high-end club like this. She'd read news reports about girls being drugged, but Jessica was her classmate, the person she was closest to in her class. How did she do this? Wasn't she afraid of getting arrested? Of going to jail? How many inexperienced girls had fallen into the abyss, thinking the same thing? They never understood that those who commit such evil have no fear of consequences. Caleb and his two friends were satisfied, playing dice and drinking. Lines of white powder were laid out on the table, and they would periodically lean down and take a sharp inhale. Kimberly, her face ashen, pushed herself up from the sofa. Jessica, her true colors now fully revealed, pointed to the cash on the table with a sneer. "Take it. Your dad needs it to stay alive." Kimberly's eyes were ice cold. She stared at the three men, her gaze finally landing on Jessica. "What?" Jessica mocked. "Judging by that look, you're thinking of calling the police?" Heh. She took out her boyfriend's phone, played the video they had just recorded, and issued her warning. "Go ahead. There's no evidence you were assaulted. The police won't be able to prove anything. Heh. But I guarantee this video of you will be all over the campus message board by morning." Ha ha. The video didn't show the faces of the three animals, but Kimberly's was perfectly clear. She bit her lip so hard it bled, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Be a good girl from now on." Jessica continued her warning. "Come when you're called. The money will be good. And don't forget, you're assigned to an entertainment company now. What was it called again? Elysian? Huh. I hope you won't ruin your own future. Just take the money and go home." Just then, Caleb, still on the sofa, looked sharply at Kimberly. "Elysian? Your boss is Ethan Vance." Kimberly knew Caleb had a grudge against Ethan. Seeing the sudden, manic excitement in his eyes, she felt a powerful wave of terror. The beating from his old man a few days ago had scared him straight, but bullying one of Ethan's employees? That wasn't a big deal. The Vance family wouldn't bother with something so trivial. If Ethan Vance tried to play the hero over this, he would be the one bullying them. Did he really think the Shaw family was a pushover? Maybe his old man would even step in personally and take care of that arrogant punk for him. Caleb let out another sick laugh, his eyes fixed on Kimberly, making her skin crawl. She instinctively tried to run, but her legs gave out and she collapsed back onto the sofa. Ha! Caleb's laughter grew wilder. He turned to Jessica's boyfriend. "Hey, didn't you say you have a little estate out in the country? Let's go have some fun there tonight." Jessica's boyfriend shot a leering glance at Kimberly. "Sure, it's nice and quiet out there. We can play however we want." Ha! An icy chill spread through Kimberly's entire body. The fear in her eyes was about to spill over. "I'm begging you, please let me go." She trembled. I won't call the police. I promise. Please. My dad is in the hospital. He needs me. I'm begging you." Her pleas were useless. Demons have no pity. If anything, a more pathetic victim only heightened their excitement. They easily bundled her into a car. Less than an hour later, they were outside the city, heading down a remote road toward the estate. Kimberly kept begging, her voice raw and hoarse, but her cries were met only with mocking laughter. Gradually, however, the effects of the drug began to wear off. Kimberly clenched her fists, feeling most of her strength return. Her head was no longer spinning. Just then, she saw headlights approaching. A police car. A flicker of hope ignited in the darkness. Holding her breath, she stealthily moved her hand to the window button. The police car got closer and closer. Kimberly saw her chance. But just as she was about to lower the window, Caleb lunged, grabbing her hand. An instant later, his fist slammed into her face. Her head crashed against the window, just as the police car sped past with a siren's wail. Dizzy and disoriented, Kimberly pounded on the window in desperate, futile protest, her pleas turning into wails of despair. The three animals in the car roared with laughter. Caleb slapped her twice more across the face. "I told you to behave. Why don't you listen? Not a good girl at all, huh?" He dipped a finger in the blood, trickling from the corner of her mouth, and licked it clean. Kimberly's breathing was ragged. Her eyes, half open and filled with tears, stared out into the night. Her hair was a mess, her head slumped against the glass as she sobbed. A short while later, a small bridge appeared up ahead. Just before it was a tall speed bump. The car slowed down. Kimberly, who had given up all hope, felt the change in speed. She secretly glanced ahead and saw the bridge. A spark lit up in her eyes. As the car cleared the speed bump and began to accelerate again, Kimberly seized her moment. She threw open the door and jumped. She had once worked as a stunt double for some B-list actress, and under professional guidance, she had filmed a scene jumping from a moving car. The current speed was slow, comparable to the speed in that scene. She knew what to do. She tucked and rolled, landing on her feet and breaking into a dead sprint. By the time Caleb and his friends realized what had happened and scrambled out of the car, she had already leaped from the bridge. The bridge was nearly 30 feet high, with a shallow river flowing beneath. The three animals stood at the edge, squinting into the darkness. They could hear her splashing in the water below, but the night was too black to see anything. Fuck. Jessica's boyfriend cursed. The other man joined in, hurling obscenities at the river below. Caleb's expression was unreadable, a strange mix of anger and amusement. He slowly licked the last trace of blood from his fingertip and let out a soft, sinister laugh.